Having reached the hour of 5:30, I am calling the August 13th, 2024 Modesto City Council meeting to order and ask the city clerk to call the roll.
Councilmember Bavaro.
Present.
Councilmember Williams.
Here.
Councilmember Wright.
Here.
Councilmember Scutia-Brayton.
Here.
Vice Mayor Alvarez.
Here.
Councilmember Ricky.
Here.
And Mayor Zwellen.
Here. Will everyone please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance, followed by the invocation from Pat Nagel from Redeemer. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Would you join me in prayer? My Father, we just want to begin this evening with a measure of gratitude. And I just want to begin by saying thank you for all who are in attendance here this evening, both in person and online. I'm always encouraged by how many people show up for this community that we love and live in. And so, Lord, we want to thank you for all those who are working, both officially and unofficially, who represent all the interests within our community. We want to thank you for the agenda that's been put together and for each item we get to pay attention to tonight. Ultimately, as we enter into this meeting, Lord, we ask for your goodness to prevail. We ask for good things to come out, for passion to go into all the conversation, for each voice to have dignity, and for all of it to work together for good things. And Lord, we just thank you for your freedom that you've given us to meet here without any repercussions tonight. We pray for your goodness to just prevail through every moment. We thank you, and we say amen.
Amen.
Amen. Thank you.
At this time, does the city clerk have any announcements?
Yes, Mayor. Just a reminder, public comment is 3 minutes, and there are blue speaker cards at the entrance of the chambers.
Thank you. Do any of the council members have any conflicts of interest?
And maybe I can make a comment here. The Vice Mayor Alvarez will be recusing himself from item 12 related to a change in ownership of a cannabis dispensary. The Vice Mayor does not have a financial interest with this item. However, as stated previously, given that a family member informed him of their intent to apply for a permit under the city's cannabis program, he wished to avoid any perception issues.
Thank you. Will the city attorney please report out on closed session?
Yes, Mayor. There were no reportable action was taken for the anticipated litigation items nor the property negotiation. However, there is reportable action related to the public employee performance evaluation for the city manager and mayor. You'll be reporting out on that.
All right, thank you. Pursuant to City Charter Section 725 of the City Charter, tonight in closed session, the City Council reviewed the performance of the city manager as it relates to the core competencies of the position, his duties and responsibilities, his past achievements during this rating period, as well as his upcoming goals for this next year. At the conclusion of closed session, the council unanimously concluded that the city manager is doing an excellent job. We truly appreciate everything that he and his leadership team has accomplished this past year, and we look forward to another successful year with him and his dedicated team. And at this time, I will ask council members if they have any comments. Councilmember Scutia-Brayton.
Thank you, Mayor. I just would like to applaud the city manager on an exemplary performance evaluation and thank him. Thank you, Joe, for your exemplary leadership, your hard work, and your commitment to the city of Modesto. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments at this time? Councilmember Ricky.
Thanks, Mayor. I also want to applaud Joe for his hard work for the city over the last year. We're seeing this council being really functional. We're seeing the city really moving forward, and having an effective city manager is a really good way to do that. And so thanks, Joe, for all your hard work, and let's keep it up.
All right, Councilmember Williams.
Thank you, Mayor. I also would like to thank our city manager, Joe Lopez, for all of the hard work that he does. at work and even when he's not at work, and he's thinking about all the things that needs to take place in this community. I know he truly cares for each and every one of the citizens of this community by the actions of how he actually works with us. So thank you for all that you do. None of us here are perfect, but we are doing our best to be the best version of ourselves. So thank you.
All right, Councilmember Bavaro.
Thank you, Mayor. I also would like to echo the comments my fellow council members have said and add that you judge a leader by who they surround themselves with, and the staff that he has, the executive staff, and the communication skills that the city manager has with the city. And we've accomplished a lot of great things in making Modesto a better place to live, work, and raise our family. And most of that is attributed to who runs the daily operations of the City of Modesto, and that's our city manager, Joe Lopez.
All right, Vice Mayor Alvarez.
Thank you, Mayor. I want to echo the sentiments of my colleagues and just pay homage and kudos to Joe Lopez, our city manager. We've accomplished in the past year and a half since I've been on council more than many jurisdictions across the state have accomplished in 5 years. And that's a testament to Joe's leadership, both his hard skills and his soft skills, and I'm happy that I'm able to work alongside him to serve the residents of Modesto.
Councilmember Wright.
Thank you, Mayor. I too want to compliment our city manager, Joe Lopez, and his staff. Staff is very important in order to make a city run functional, and the work that the staff does along under the guidance of our city manager, things get done a lot faster in this city than a lot of cities. And that's because of your leadership, and we appreciate you and glad that you're here and not going somewhere else. Thank you.
All right. In closed session, some words that I use to describe our city manager is that he is fearless, immovable, strong, respectful, and that he has staff support. I am so appreciative of all of our directors and staff that he surrounds himself with, and that we are fortunate enough to have a give of their time and talent to our city. So thank you, Joe. Appreciate it. All right. Next on the agenda is item 1. Consider accepting the resignation of Michelle Buer from the Landmark Preservation Commission. Does council have any questions of staff? Seeing none, I'll open this item up to the public. Are there any members of the public that would like to come forward regarding item 1? Seeing none, I'll close public comments and any council member comments at this time. Councilmember Williams.
Thank you, Mayor. I'd like to thank Ms. Michelle for her service for the Landmark Preservation Commission, for her service, everything that she did. And there are other commissions that are out there that are open to the citizens of Modesto. All you would need to do is go to modestogov.com, and you can sign up for some of these other programs and commissions that are open and ready for you to serve. Thank you.
You're welcome. I have a resolution accepting the resignation of Michelle Buer from the City of Modesto Landmark Preservation Commission. Do I have a motion?
Motion to approve?
All right. Approved by Councilmember Wright, second by Councilmember Ricky. Will the clerk please call the roll for this item?
Councilmember Bavaro.
Aye.
Councilmember Williams.
Aye.
Councilmember Wright.
Aye.
Councilmember Scudetto-Brayton.
Aye.
Vice Mayor Alvarez.
Aye.
Councilmember Ricky.
Aye.
And Mayor Zwollen.
Aye. Carries unanimously. Item 2, consider appointing Angela Drew as the Poet Laureate of the City of Modesto for a 2-year term retroactive to July 1st, 2024 through June 30th, 2026. Does council have any questions of staff? Seeing none, I'll open this item up to the public. Any members of the public that would like to come forward regarding item 2 in this appointment? Seeing none, I'll close public comments. Any comments from council members? Seeing none, I have a resolution appointing Angela Drew as the Poet Laureate of the City of Modesto for a 2-year term, retroactive to July 1st, 2024 through June 30th, 2026. Do I have a motion?
Second.
Motion by Councilmember Scudia-Brayton, second by Councilmember Williams. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Councilmember Bavaro.
Aye.
Councilmember Williams.
Aye.
Councilmember Wright.
Aye.
Councilmember Scudia-Brayton. Vice Mayor Alvarez. Councilmember Ricky.
Aye.
And Mayor Zwollen.
Aye, carries unanimously. Next on the agenda is public comment. As noted on the agenda, public comment will only be in person. Zoom will still be available for viewing and wordly translation. Does anyone wish to speak on any item under public comment? This is for items not on the council agenda, and you have 3 minutes to speak. Anyone wishing to address the city council is asked to follow the rules of decorum. The rules of decorum are posted at the entrance of the chambers. I currently have several blue cards. First is, and I will read them in the order that they were received. Daniel Morgart, welcome.
Good evening, Mayor, Vice Mayor, and council members. My name is Danielle Morgar. I'm here on behalf of Assemblyman Juan Alanis, providing a legislative update. We have some really good news on Juan Alanis's AB 1796 bill was signed by the governor into law, and what this bill, or now law, does is it provides notification to parents of the available advanced course opportunities for their students. So now any 7 through 12 or 9 through 12, so high school level, will send out notifications of any college courses, advanced placement courses, out to parents to notify them of the course's availability. And then just the other day, AB 1972, which would support law enforcement agencies in their fight against cargo theft with additional equipment, resources, and personnel. That was sent to the governor's desk for a pending signature. As many of us may have seen with retail theft, it's been affecting our communities, and we really hope that the governor will sign it into law. As always, if you have any questions, concerns, please don't hesitate on reaching out to our office. Thank you.
Thank you. Next is Ronald Deloach.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, City Council. My name is Ron Deloach. I'm a member of the West Modesto People's Action Council, also a member of the Modesto Neighborhoods Incorporated, and also an NAACP Housing Committee member. And I'm here to talk about our 50 acres in West Modesto that we need to make a decision on whether we're going to build on it or not. Our residents, I talk with our residents, and we're really interested in knowing what we're going to do. We know about the Amtrak construction of 85 acres that you're going to form a new neighborhood over by the Amtrak in North Modesto, and we know about the 1,000 luxury apartments being built near Paladine and near Costco, so that people can work in the Bay Area and also be able to live here, because it's getting to be too expensive for them to live in the Bay Area. They're also going to upgrade the train system so that they can easily go from Bay Area to here, Modesto. And what I'm more concerned about is why we, the people of West Modesto, are living on top of each other. We have adequate room to build onto, but we seem to be picking areas that doesn't concern West Modesto. And I hope that we can soon come to some sort of agreement that we can we can build better, more workforce housing in Modesto. There's a lot of different concepts that we have and that we'd like to go over. We've talked to just about everybody on the committee, and everyone has a different opinion of what we should do. But along that line, we need to come up with an agreement so that we can go on with this. Because we are really tired of living on top of each other. We need some resolution. Thank you.
You're welcome. Next is Sebastian Jones. Sebastian Jones is next.
Oh, I didn't know I was gonna be called that quick. Let me get my notes together. I didn't know I was gonna be called that quick. Thank you, Mayor and the City Council. I hope you can understand me. I got some here I want you to listen to.
Public comments that were made earlier regarding an application process to join a commission or committee. Our application processes, as I would imagine other entities and agencies are based on merit. And there's a merit-based application process for committees and commissions, and I would not take the advice that was said earlier, that if you technically, for example, this is the same thing, if you apply for a job and don't get it, and you give the middle finger to that potential employer, that only justifies the prospective employer's decision in not choosing you. The logic is, come on, fundamental logic there. And so I want to thank the youth for attending and to really use your independent thought process and critical thinking. When you hear certain things, people are free to say what they want. You have the decision to make your critical thinking process on your own. And so I would just recommend that. And then we do respond to comments. I've responded to activists a couple of times, a couple of meetings ago, during my council comments, which is the appropriate time to do it. And we respond if it's warranted and if it's substantive. But we're not going to get roped into petty squabbles. You got the wrong council. This is not the council for petty squabbles. And I think that's where the frustration lies, is that they can't really bait us like they want to. Try it. Got me a couple times. We're all human. But I think if we're stoic, we're down. If I make a face or flinch, you heard it. So what do? I would like that gentleman to give me some recommendation on what he thinks I should do, how I should lead. So again, I wish they were here, but
they're not here. That's enough. You're right. I got a job. I left on January 9th. You're talking about me? Why would you disrespect and say, this is a middle finger? I've been coming down here over 12 years. I ain't never disrespect anybody. Giving a middle finger, and you told the world that Mr. Jones gave a middle finger, and that's why I can't sit on the committees. I'm barred from the committee because this man gave a middle finger. And who are you to give young people a lecture? For well over 30 years, there's three things I do. My seniors, my homeless, and my youth. Over my project, Martin Luther King Center. Who are you to make me look bad? Go and tell them they gotta think what they processing about Jones. Councilman, I never thought I was gonna have this with you. I love you, brother. I love all y'all. But I didn't think that it was gonna come down to you persuading over here, because you gotta learn, Sebastian, I am who I am. When I asked you for a sign, you didn't give it to me. We had 4 accidents on my street. They totaled my blue 300. I see why. You need community activists like me. When you didn't show up at the park, I had your back. Because I left out here, that's my job coming with me. And you wish I was here, and you dragged me in the mud. I'm so, look at this. I've been thinking since that day until now. Character assassination. I don't know where you got the middle finger from. I don't know, but that's not me. What goes on in the people's house? You're a councilman. If all of y'all know me, when we out in the public, Mr. Jones like to have fun. I have never disrespect you guys out in the public. Ricky, can I get an amen? Jeremiah, can I get an amen? Because I'm trying, what I do is, I get on these boards here. The reason I get on these boards, because I want people to look like me. That's why I be on Jeremiah. Because he won't let no African American on that corner. He won't let no African American on the fairground. Don't get mad at me. Let me speak peacefully. All I'm trying to do is bring peoples together. God knows.
Okay, Mr. Jones.
I know. I'm going to say this last word. Mayor, you've been so lenient to me. I have this paper here. And I'm going to turn it because I don't want to have another.
Okay, you've exceeded your time.
Okay, yeah, you're right. Well, I'm going to say these 3 words. Peace, be still, and look up Jeremiah 23:1 in the Bible. Mayor, not to disrespect the change. Thank you.
You're welcome. Next is Manuela. Manuela?
Hello. I'm going to do a really hard task, which is reading off the victims killed by the Modesto Police Department. Alberto Sepulveda, Sammy Galvin, Richard Robles, Elizabeth Kropp, Francisco Moran, Garrett Schmidt, Kim Jackson, Trevor Seaver, and Paul Chavez. And there's definitely many more killed by Modesto Police Department. And if we want to be a community, if we want to take care of the people who live here or who visit here, we have got to change the Modesto Police Department immediately. So we have some demands that we're bringing here tonight. The first one is fund public education, affordable housing, public health, and social programs instead of cops. Number 2, City Council must push for non-binding arbitration process for the 2027 Memorandum of Understanding. Number 3, demilitarize police and divert costs of militarization to our city's school districts. Number 4, divert police away from chat program and instead hire appropriate health workers. Number 5, relinquish police control of the Community Police Review Board to center around community voices. These are all extremely doable, but you have to have the will to do it. You have to care about the people that you're representing. You have to listen to the families who have been victimized by the police department. Every single person I read off today has family and friends whose lives are devastated forever. Paul Chavez's wife, Brittany Estrella Chavez, literally died of a broken heart for 2 years, screaming over the murder of her husband, trying to raise 3 children who no longer have their father
pleaded with the Modesto City Council and was called stupid under someone's breath. You know who you are. Was disrespected. I went to her funeral, and all I could think about was the Modesto PD doing this to her and the City Council doing nothing. So we plead with you, we beg you, and we hold you accountable to keep us safe in our community. Thank you.
You're welcome. Next is Penny G.
Sonia Massey was 36. I'm 34. Sonia Massey has a 16-year-old son named Malachi. I have an 18-year-old son named Malachi. Sonia Massey had struggles with her mental health. I have had struggles with my mental health. Situations have arisen in my life wherein I believed that the police were the only choice. They came to my home, they listened intently, and they tried their best to comfort me. I got calls from the DA, victims advocates, and I was offered support. Sonia Massey called the cops to keep herself safe because she heard a noise on the outside of her home and she was shot in the fucking face. Excuse Officer Sean Grayson's language, as those are his words, not mine. Sonia was black and I'm white. This matters because in Stanislaus County are 17.4 times more likely to be shot by police than if you are white. If you're in Clear Modesto's in Stanislaus County. Sean Grayson's boss was given plenty of information that should have saved Sonia Massey's life. He should have never been hired. Joseph Lamontia has killed 5 people, 4 of which were unarmed at the time of their murders. Joseph Lamontia is currently seeking his job back through a binding arbitration process. If he and his union are successful, Modesto will not have a choice but to pay this serial killer to terrorize our streets once again. But this time he'll be here for good. We have enough information to make a better decision than Sean Grayson's boss. We know Lamontia is a loose cannon. We can prevent another tragedy. We have the opportunity here to save lives. Say no to Joseph Lamontia and say no to killer cops. I would like to take the rest of my time for a moment of silence for all of Modesto Police's victims. I have a list a lot longer than the one that was given earlier. And I'm devoted to bringing light to every single one of those murders. Say her name, Sonia Massey.
Sonia Massey.
All right. The next is Carla.
I wasn't as smart as someone to bring a reporting, but when people of color, or especially an organization that organizes and brings people together to talk about their grievances against the city council, against MPD, and we get told, hey, it's just white people caring about brown people's problems, that's not okay, especially since I'm a person that was there. So I don't know if I'm color enough for you guys to be worrying about these problems. Because from what I'm hearing from the rest of the people that I stand in solidarity with that have spoken here, we get written off a lot. We get undermined a lot. You guys are not any better than us. We're all the same people. Just because you guys sit up there does not mean you guys could treat us in a condescending way. We're bringing real issues to you guys, and you guys keep patting yourselves in the back, saying you guys are doing better than other cities. When someone mentioned you guys are doing a housing program, in North Modesto, and you're bringing in inequity even more. You're leaving West Side Modesto alone. Literally, I grew up in West Side Modesto. I am so happy for the Dr. Martin Luther King Center because that's where I would do activities. That's what kept me off the streets. And if that was his project, it wasn't a city project then. So what I'm really demanding is that you guys need to stop funding the police. You guys are paying more in settlements towards these victims' families that could actually be going towards our community. You guys are passing more vagrancy laws and you're making criminalizing even easier and allowing these cops to harass homeless people. And when they get harassed and they get put in jail, jail is not free. You guys are deciding to put more into jails, more into criminalization, when you guys could actually have the opportunity that we're bringing to you, invest in these communities. If you guys want lower crime rates, it's not going to be because you buy a jet or whatever, a plane for MPD. They did not need that. You know, Modesto City Schools, the most of those students live at or below the poverty line. And you're bringing MPD into those schools. You're just letting them know who's going to be arresting them later. You're not putting things into activities for these students, for these children. Instead, you're letting them know who's going to be harassing them later when they grow up. That is not okay. You guys have all of these budgets to go into the community. Instead, you're going into MPD budgets, which cost thousands of dollars to maintain. So no, I am not happy with what the city council is doing, especially since people have been respectful for years, bringing in these things. Even if they're respectful, you're actually still blowing them off. So don't come here and say, "Oh, you guys are being rude. We're not going to take you into account," because that's not true. Even if people are not approaching you in a rude way, you still blow them off. Thank you.
Next is Steve. Steve?
We're going to talk about your complicity in police terror in our community today. There's so many examples of it, and I obviously don't have the time for all of that. Most of them have already been brought up. I want to focus on talking about the arbitration process because it does tie in to your complicity. I have this quick little passage. I want you guys to hear how absolutely idiotic this nonsense is, okay? So, first of all, it goes into saying, like, basically, when someone like Joseph Lamantia wants to appeal and try to get their job back, the city calls on the state to pick a list, okay? Now, we already know that democracy is taking a little bit of a hit there because we know how these things operate. Did you know that, you know who testified as experts in Joseph Lamantia's preliminary trial? His homies. Other cops, other quote-unquote experts that do the same thing in other trials. It's disgusting. So here's the passage I want to focus on. The hearing officer shall, after the matter is submitted, prepare and file findings and decisions. The decisions of the hearing officer shall be final and binding. The decisions shall be rendered as quickly as possible with due regard for the hardships that may result from undue delay. Aw, poor killer cop. It goes on, and my dumb ass got the wrong slide. And it goes on to say that arbitrator can control the process, and no one can complain about how he went about making his decision. It clearly specifies, say for example, if Joe brings his buddy in, and say it's like Jacob Mertz, or what was the so-called expert that testified in his prelim, he says, "Nah, man, Joe was scared. He had to kill Trevor. He had to have his gun in his hand before he put his car in park. Blah, blah, blah." Oh, well, how do you know that? I just get this vibe, man. That's what this city is leading us to. You're throwing us to the wolves. You have been complicit. Mr. Bavaro, your smug facial expression right now is a good example, but I'm not getting distracted because that is only one tiny tip of the iceberg. You guys have showed inconceivable disrespect to this community for years. You're complicit. The CPRB is just what you gave us to shut us up. We have an auditor that, like, is quoted in the B as saying, oh, I don't do that. Essentially, it all boils down to you reinforcing the system of police terror that coexisted before you. You want to wait till your second term to stand up for families, you hypocrite? You're endorsed by the Police Officers Association. You guys make me sick. These 5 demands that people have brought to you are reasonable.
All right, Steve.
Okay? You need to ask yourselves if you can consider this a democracy at all.
All right, next is Giancarlo.
Jeez, never been a Giancarlo before?
Hi, my name is John Carlo, a brown male that is a part of Central Valley Black Indigenous People of Color Coalition. And what I'm here to talk about is police terror. And the reason for it is because the issue is that the police are given too many responsibilities that they are not equipped to solve. These are social, these are economic, these are political issues that they should not be held responsible for. Not only that though, but legally, when we are told, as when we're little children, that police keep us safe and they're here to protect and serve, legally that has never been the case. There have been Supreme Court cases in 1989, 2005, and 2013 that reaffirm that they do not have to protect us legally. And the issue, and what they do in order to solve these social, political, and economic issues is criminalizing them. And what that there does is it increases police terror and surveillance of socioeconomic disadvantaged folks and people of color. Mass incarceration, over 22% of the world's prison population exists here in the United States. Okay? What we also have is the wrongful murders and destruction of families. And we have an impacted family here that we stand in solidarity with, and we are connected to them, my friends, and we always will be. And we have an exacerbation of those social and economic issues and the conditions, and it will always be at the expense of the working class through our tax money and through people's lives, okay? And the reason again for that is because what's being used here in the city is broken windows policing. And studies show, tons of studies have shown that it does not work. It is a failed system, okay? And what we have is majority of our arrests being for nonviolent, low-level offenses. And what you are doing is criminalizing people, specifically houseless people as well, which is what I want to talk about here, okay? Because the biggest predictor of any type of crime is poverty and social dysfunction, and we have to fund to support those people that are suffering from those conditions, okay? It costs way more to criminalize these houseless folks, which we've had over 5,000 cases due to vagrancy laws here, which the city had reported this year, okay? It's way cheaper to provide them with stable housing, folks. We have people here like begging for you to do that work to provide that housing, especially on the west side, okay? These are the right thing to do. Fund the community, support them, do not criminalize them. And we have been dismissed. We've been told that we have no code connection with families, that we basically are white people that should not talk about this, okay? People have tried to call out our names on here and dox us, but we are still here lending an open door for y'all to meet with us and work with us because we want to solve this issue. We want to keep people safe. Like those of you that say that you care about your communities. The west side, the south side, downtown and nearby areas are struggling. We are here to support you if you want to work with us. Can you please do that?
Next is Anthony.
I rise today out of concern for actions taken recently by this council, notably the vote on the ordinance for approving MPD's military equipment use policy, in which the council unanimously affirmed the purchase of the requested military equipment is necessary because there is, and I quote, no reasonable alternative. I'll read that again. The council attested that there is no reasonable alternative that can achieve the same objective of officer and civilian safety. Now, as a teacher of both psychology and economics, I know people, I know budgets, so I find this claim of no reasonable alternative to be doubly suspect. Research published in Nature's Journal of Human Behavior affirms the reality that militarization of local police has not been found to reduce crime levels. Nope, not even a little bit. Actually, military-grade equipment on our streets can intimidate community members, making them feel like they are under occupation rather than being protected. Per MPD's 2022 military equipment use report statistics, the annual maintenance of MPD's military holdings amounts to $42,500, while the value of currently held military assets sums to over $500,000. Frankly, I feel less safe when I see that we have 3 armored vehicles and thousands of dollars with chlorobenzene malonitrile gas. But what do I know? Oh wait, I know that military equipment is expensive to acquire, maintain, and operate. Redirecting funds from militarization to housing initiatives and mental health services would be more cost-effective and beneficial to our city. Now, I wish I could surrender what was left of my time, but I simply must continue to draw attention to another example of our bloated police budget. This summer, City Council also approved over $500,000 in spending over the next 5 years for an agreement with Assurance Polygraph. Now, last I checked, MPD claims that they take pride in being a learning organization. If that's true, then they'll listen to a teacher when I say it is asinine for them to use polygraphs as part of their hiring practices, despite the overwhelming consensus in the field of psychology that polygraph tests are little more than pseudoscience. This council unanimously approved this item from the consent calendar. If the city wanted to spend $500,000 on tests that don't work, I think I have some misprints from the last time my break room copier jammed. Though I digress. One has to imagine that what amounts to millions of dollars in wasteful spending on military equipment and polygraph exams could be better used to address the underlying social issues that contribute to crime, such as poverty, lack of education, and housing. Imagine how that additional funding could be used to benefit downtown street teams or help close the funding gaps caused by our state's budget deficit, such that we can continue to pursue solutions to our housing crisis. But uncritically passing these items, I'm concerned that the City Council is failing in their fiscal and moral responsibilities to everyday Modestans. Surely, militarizing our community streets and polygraph theatrics cannot be desirable outcomes. Yet, Council's unanimous consent suggests that these items are somehow necessary. In the future, I would urge Council to pursue common sense budgetary decisions, such as demilitarizing our police, foregoing quack polygraph exams. Our housing needs are too great for such reckless spending on ineffective policing. So let's work together to get more Modestans into homes. I hope you'll be unanimous in recognizing that this time, there truly is no reasonable alternative. I'm begging you to work with us. We're spending far too much money on militarizing our police department to terrorize our citizens when we should be putting people in houses. Thank you.
You're welcome. Next is Nick.
Hi, my name's Nick. I've been born and raised in Modesto my whole life. My mom has been a 30-year ER vet at the doctor's hospital, which to my understanding is the county hospital. She used to take home stories from her time there, more like war stories at times, about some of the patients, the insurances, the malpractice, the overall bureaucracy that comes with hospitals. And one of the things I learned from it was not only how to treat more medicine accurately, but more socioeconomic policies as well. You don't treat an illness by treating the symptoms of it. If you have a brain tumor, you don't treat by giving an Advil. You treat the actual problem. And I know it's a very, dumbed down idea, but that's what I'm going with. Okay, I've been also born and raised at Modesto High. My dad was a 30-year plus teacher there, and one of the things I learned also is he was very ill-equipped. He had to buy a lot of his own supplies, and he had to bring a lot of his own stuff from home. And further escalating police budgets by increasing it with more militarization goes away from things that are more desperately needed. Along with my time at Modesto High, I was very privileged to coach there and got a more hands-on approach to a lot of the athletes and kids that participated and went to Modesto High, which has a very bad rap of being, quote-unquote, what I'd hear all the time, the poor school, along with other schools that seem to be, quote-unquote, doing better. And what I learned is a lot of them were ill-equipped, they were very well underfunded, they came from very poor socioeconomic backgrounds who could have done better by getting more help, by getting more supplies, getting more things that could have helped them while I had my short time as a coach there. And one of the things I personally saw was a lot of times I had to put my own time, my own effort into helping my own community and helping my own athletes to do better. Some of my own as a student, some of my own paycheck went to some of my athletes' clothes, shoes, and gear to keep them participating because I knew a lot of their background could not go to that. Another thing is increasing military budget in terms of also policing budget in terms of maintaining it, it goes away in terms of things like vagrancy laws as well. That sets a very fine precedent of what is acceptable, what is okay, and what is not. If we are okay with saying that someone who is very poor, or someone who's very ill-managed or in a bad background, and we don't want them around, it's very easy to jail them, which in turn increases budget away from things that could better be suited for that. Sorry, my first city council meeting.
It's okay.
But overall, increasing policing is more dealing with a symptom of it instead of dealing with illness, which is socioeconomic backgrounds, which should be the primary concern of the community and in terms of the city council, in terms of any budget of any respectable government, period. Thank you.
You're welcome. Next is Kevin McClarty.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. I wanted to speak to you about several things, and wanted to start out by talking about printing more agendas. There never seem to be enough English agendas for all of the people who attend the meetings, and I would have thought that, you know, knowing that you haven't had a meeting in 6 weeks, that there would have been more agendas tonight. Because, you know, simply, you would anticipate that there would be more people, and there just never seemed to be enough. The other thing is, I strongly want to suggest that you change the format of the meetings. I would suggest that you start out with public comments. Sometimes we have these sessions whereby you are awarding people with certificates and medals and things like that. And that's all necessary, I understand that. But sometimes it's almost an hour before you get into public comments. And then the other thing I wanted to recommend is that the session whereby, I forget what it's called, the session whereby the council members all speak about what they've been doing the past month and so forth, and they kind of offer personal reflections on things. I think that should be right after public comments. Because I stayed at the last meeting that I attended. I stayed for the entire meeting, and several of the council members shared their reactions to what had been said in public comments earlier. But the people who had made those comments were all gone. They didn't hear the comments. So I think that the people deserve to hear the council members' reactions to what they are saying, and they deserve to hear them right away. Not 35 or 40 or 45 minutes later after a break and everything else. That's too long. People deserve to hear it right afterwards. So I think that you should start out with public comments. Then you should have this sharing session, or whatever you call it, of the council members. Then you can have a break. Then you can have the award ceremonies, and then you can have the vote on the consent items. That can be the last thing you do. So I'm really strongly recommending that you change the format of the meetings. Make it more amenable to the public, more accessible to the public, and it will enable the public to see right away how you feel about what they're saying, because the people deserve that. So anyway, I want to devote my last 5 seconds to a moment of silence for the people who've been killed by... Thank you.
You're welcome. Next is Darlene.
Well, we've been meeting here now for 3.5 years, and nothing's changed. It's gotten worse. Let me say their names: Kim Jackson, Omar Villegas, Francis Morano, Garrett Schmidt, and my son Trevor Sieber, all killed at the hands of Joseph LaMattia. Now, How do you think these families in this community feel? That he's asking the city to pay money for him killing our children. That's okay. First, he was fired and charged. Charges have been dropped. Now he's asking for his job back. And nobody can stand up and say it's not okay. We don't want you back on our force. We have a labor lawyer that's going to decide that. And our chief of police, his boss, doesn't want to back out on the force, but he has no say. We need to change that. It's not going to bring my son back. It's not going to change the binding, isn't going to change Joseph Lamatia, but it will change the future for Modesto. And that's what I'm here for. You can't pay me enough money to keep me from standing up for justice, police reform, for my son. My son's life mattered, and it's going to make a difference. All of you sit here quietly. If you have one bad officer and 12 that say nothing, you have 13 bad officers. It's your job, City Council, I have met with a lot of you, and it's your job to stand up to make sure Joseph Lamatia doesn't come back. Joseph Lamatia isn't much different than Sean Grayson. My son isn't any different than Sonia Massey. It's time to make changes, but it's up to you guys instead of sitting here silently and not doing anything to stand up. We have to fight. Don't pay Joseph Lamatia money for killing our family. Our lives are destroyed forever. You guys get to go back to your families. You get to spend the weekends with your family. Our families are destroyed. Both my son and daughter suffer. I'm still in counseling. It will never be okay. And all we're asking is to make real change, to make our community safer. It's tragic what happened to my son, but we have to change that. And that's up to you guys to stand up and make it right. Thank you. Justice for Trevor.
Say his name.
Trevor Seaver!
Say his name.
Trevor Seaver!
Ray Ruiz.
Hi, everybody. Ray Ruiz. Trevor was my stepson. Well, he was my son. I just didn't know him when he was born. It's been such a tough 3.5 years. And that's how long I've been coming here, and I just noticed that really City Council and the City of Modesto have made no effort at anything. They fired Lamatia. The city makes no effort to prosecute this guy. They find an expert that said Trevor had a gun in his sweatpants. I mean, it's just kind of ridiculous. You know, you guys put together a CPRB, Community Police Review Board, which is a joke. Nothing happens. Not one thing has happened in a year. And then, you know, I'll be real quick. I mean, now I hear about this lawsuit that Lamatia is going against the city. I mean, just for once in 3 years and 8 months and however many days, I would like the city and city council to really make an effort. Just make an effort once to just gotta make this go away. Because there's no way a guy deserves money for killing Trevor and 4 other people too. Thanks very much.
You're welcome.
Trevor Seaver!
Next
Say
is
his name.
Trevor Seaver!
I can see you shaking your head, Sue, that's rude.
It's only human life.
Right.
I would just
We're all in
ask
front of everybody.
that everyone please be respectful
You
of
too.
all the presenters.
Yeah.
That goes for you too.
Next is Charles. Charles?
Charles.
Do we have Charles Moses Elder?
Yes. How y'all doing? I want to speak on something that was just mentioned
earlier about Jeremiah 23. And I'm going to read verse 1, and I'm going to explain it real quick. Woe be unto the pastors that destroy and scatter the sheep of my pastures, says the Lord. Now I'm going to read it again. Woe be unto the politics that destroy and scatter the sheep of my pastures, says the Lord. What I would like to say is, I don't know anybody up here. I only know this man. What I'm here for today is to confront some things, and I'm getting ready to shake some trees. And when I say I'm going to shake some trees, leaves are going to fall. I would like to see Jeremiah and this brother right here learn to not bring their personal issues in and deal with their jobs. Because I have so much data. I've been knowing this man right here for a long time. I know when he started, and I know who he is. So before I go any further in doing what I need to do, and believe me, my name is very well known, probably with most of their grandfathers and their dads. But I changed. And I was so good at being who I was in prison, obtaining information, speaking to people, and just trying to rationalize things. But the key is I have a problem with all this personal bickering, as I'm pretty sure y'all can hear and see. But man, you got to get it together, man. And leave whatever it is out. Do your job. Only thing I care about is do your job. Whatever your personal business is, leave your personal business at home. A prison guard told me one time, all he did was did his 8 and hit the gate. Because he came to do his job. Everything else he left out. And I'm hoping all of y'all do the same thing. This is not about no big I, little you. This is not about one trying to be bigger than the next. You're black, you're black. And I know that this man has tried to do many things out there in the community or whatever it is, and whoever else is lined up with him. All I'm saying is this. It's time, man. Y'all need to settle y'all difference. Y'all need to sit down like men and straighten this out. Because all that personal stuff, leave that on the street. This is about business, house business. This is not about street business.
Thank you. Next is Ramon Rodriguez.
Good evening. Just to clarify, let me say, past 3 years, and prior to that, the George Floyd tragedy. This is a really, really upsetting that you guys don't do nothing. I remember seeing then police chief, I forgot his name, and then assistant chief Gillespie doing performative kneel for George Floyd. And when this opportunity, when this murderous incident happened, you should have learned a lesson from George Floyd. Instead, you just keep playing politics. And when you had the opportunity to hear impacted families speaking out and demanding justice, not just for their families, but to prevent more tragedies and incidents, you just ignore it. And some of you guys, you have brought personal beef against members of the community who is trying to tell you to do their jobs. You guys just let it off. But you let Proud Boys and neo-Nazis and bigots speak around, and you took away Zoom, but you try to silence the community. And also I've learned something. When I went to the militarized equipment meeting, I spoke to some of the officers in the assault rifle thing, and I did not mention LaMatia's name, but that incident in Stockton, they did mention that LaMatia was the officer who shot the AR-15 at David Cummings Jr., and that was 2 months before he murdered Trevor Seaver. And you know what that means? He's not just a cop. He has that issue. He has that warrior mentality that he's trained to kill because he was in SWAT. But his SWAT mentality, he stuck him while being a police officer, and that's why he killed so many people and injured. And we don't know how many people he beat. And now he wants his job back, and he's suing the county, the DA, and the city to get his job back? It's disgusting. I'm from Turlock. I do not want Joseph LaMantia to be in the Sheriff's Department or Turlock Police Department or law enforcement in general. He should be out of here. If he has that record, he should not be in law enforcement, period. But you guys never learned a lesson from George Floyd. You just keep ignoring. And when this happens, you're going to end up with more tragedy, more pain, more trauma for the community, and you're going to lose trust in the community. You're going to pay more money. That money should have invested in the people, especially in the underprivileged area of Modesto, and I've seen it. That money should have been spent. But instead, we spent time militarizing the police. That's not going to bring nothing. That's not going to reduce crime. In fact, violent crime is going down year to year, but we invest in militarizing. It's not good for our community. Thank you.
You're welcome. Next is Diane.
Good evening. My name is Diane Cruzy. I'm with Modesto. And I have to say I agree with these folks. It's just my dad was the captain of the police department here in town a long time ago, patrol division. And he would have hated to have the idea that a cop or a policeman, because I consider the good ones police. The rest of them is just a slang. And that's not the reason I'm up here, but it is kind of terrible that someone that has been already proven by what he's doing is now being considered to be rehired. Whatever, at least it sounds that way. But I'm not really here for that. I'm here for the homeless folks. And they're one of the people that get kind of tied up with the same thing. And I have something I have here, and I may have already read it before. I hadn't really planned on reading it, but I'm going to do it. I'm here because of the homeless in our county, and cities are still on the streets and on the dirt and experiencing whatever the sky might give them. When so-called progress Supreme Court decision allowed cities, counties to handle homeless camping as they wish, which is to get rid of them, now being on the street is even more criminal. In our eyes and theirs criminal record, also police time and money is now more involved, all more. Modesto and the county have come together in tiny houses for those with mental issues. I'm not sure if that's happening yet. I haven't been down there. They still leave lots of people uncared for. Those houses are supposed to be the fix, but only if you're psychotic. I say suppose because, because I don't see here any of the grand announcements of so-called progress. And by the way, I found out that there's such a thing as surplus county ground that can be changed from county over to Modesto, and it's called surplus. So there's no reason not to be using some of that for homeless. Those not meeting the usual civilized routines for sleeping, eating, bathing aren't fitting in the boxes you are creating in your minds. They can't. Those so-called vermin are simply people without capabilities to make everything right for themselves. Depressed, stressed, sick, disabled describes these people. Remember, they are just humans. The first three lead to problems like alcohol, drugs, suicide, death. Maybe the last two, alcohol or drugs, are contributed to being homeless. They probably do. Whatever causes the fix is understanding and applying knowledge. These people are different. They're not vermin, but human beings. They're even different from each other. Meaning problems must be thought out differently, and so solutions fitting these people and not a box. You can't conform them to something that your mind figures go. And I have just a tiny bit. If you are sleepy, hungry, cold, hot, or being attacked in a regular home, a police solve it. Not so for the homeless. Police might mean jail, losing some home positions. Sleeping means maybe being attacked, or can I even sleep? Hungry, no money, food, the stealing. Weather bad, hope for a shelter are the best possible outcome. When will you think of homeless as people instead of objects with the same needs as you. A place to be unafraid and secure even for a night. It's not much, at the least. Thank you very much for the little time.
You're welcome. Is there anyone else wanting to come forward at this time to speak under public comment for items that are not on tonight's agenda?
Amen.
Mayor, City Council, City Manager, City Attorney. We've been working on a project we've kept quiet for quite some time, and it's a project between MJC, Modesto High School, a couple of council members. They've been engaged with us, Councilman Eric Alvarez, Councilman Chris Rickey, and Modesto Police Department, along with the lowrider community. What the project's going to entitle, we're going to work on a lowrider project involving Modesto High School students in cooperation with MJC. The students will hopefully, they're going to do most of the work. All the items will be donated from the lowrider community to do this project. We're looking forward to starting the project fall of next year, preferably spring of next year if we can bump it up sooner. And the project should take roughly a year to do. And once it's completed, we'd like for all of you to be present on that revealing of the project. Once the project's done, it's going to be taken to all the high schools and school events with police department's use, along with the schools for the use to help the students learn skills. Most kids, when they do graduate from high school, they don't know what they want to do. And with this project, we're hoping that it'll inspire kids to maybe consider other things. That if they can't afford higher education, maybe they can learn a trade, and maybe look into learning a trade in the automotive industry. So that way they can maybe later down the line further their education. I have friends that have started that way. Then they worked and got their bachelor's, master's, and some gotten doctorates. So it's a base level to help some of these kids to get inspired, because some kids come from broken homes. Some kids come from homes that they can't afford to pay for college. But this is a way to help get them started. So this program hopefully will be successful. And if it is successful, maybe we can continue to have a second project for another high school for students. So with everybody's support, we hope people will follow with when we do get this up and running. It'll probably be on social media. The minute the project starts, it'll be on social media, and people can follow along to see how it's doing. Modesto High will put it up along with MJC. So thank you.
You're welcome. Any other comments at this time? All right. Seeing none, will the city clerk please read the consent items?
Item 3, consider approving the minutes for the July 9, 2024 council meeting. Item 4, consider approving the updated city council district map to include annexed territory known as Fairview Village Number 2 to District 2 pursuant to California Election Code Section 21625A.
All right, excuse me, we're going to stop for just one moment.
Yes. Yes, Mayor, I'd like to have consent item 19 removed, please.
You would like this for further discussion after we, okay. All right, thank you. All right, excuse me, Diane, and you can continue. We will pull item 19 for presentation and discussion.
So I'll continue on with item 5. Consider accepting the City of Modesto's Permanent Local Housing Allocation Program, Year 4 allocation. Item 6, consider amending Section 6 Policy, Housing Rehabilitation Program of the Housing and Urban Development Policies and Procedures Manual. Item 7, consider approving a Modesto Forward Grant Agreement with Community Housing and Shelter Services to administer a homeless prevention and rapid rehousing program in the amount not to exceed $525,000 to support households experiencing homelessness or at imminent risk of experiencing homelessness in the City of Modesto. Item 8, consider approving amendments to the capital facility fees policies and procedures. Item 9, consider a resolution of intention to form City of Modesto Community Facilities District Number 2024-1 Tivoli, an area bounded by Clarentina Avenue to the north, Oakdale Road to the west, Sylvan Avenue to the south, and Roselle Avenue, and a resolution of intention to incur debt for CFD number 2024-1. Item 10, consider approving an agreement with Lastar Development Consultants to assist in the development of the 2025-2030 Consolidated Plan, including the Year 1 Annual Action Plan and the Affirmatively Further Fair Housing Plan for a total amount not to exceed $200,000. Item 11, consider approving agreements for plan review and inspection services to Wilden Engineering out of Elk Grove and BPR Consulting Group out of Madera for a total combined amount not to exceed $2,500,000 over 5 years. Item 12 is removed from consent for a separate vote. Item 13, consider accepting the monthly investment report for May 2024. Item 14, consider accepting an informational report for the June 2024 Accounts Payable Payment Register and Void Report. Item 15, consider approving an agreement with Golden State Fire Apparatus for the purchase of one BME 4x4 freight liner wildland pumper for a total amount not to exceed $530,831. Item 16, consider approving a First Amendment to the Legal Services Agreement with Oppenheimer Investigations Group, LLP, out of Oakland to conduct citywide administrative investigations, increasing the agreement amount by $40,000 to a new total amount not to exceed $140,000. Item 17, consider approving the Legal Services Agreement with Wren Public Law Group out of San Francisco, Oppenheimer Investigations Group, LLP, out of Oakland, and Liebert Cassidy Whitmore from Fresno, California, and consultant services agreements with Municipal Resources Group, LLC, from Wilton, California, and DigiStream out of Sacramento, California, to conduct citywide administrative investigations on an as-needed basis in the amount not to exceed $100,000 each for 2 years. Item 18, consider approving the price increase of purchase order 216609 for Tracy Ford out of Tracy, California by $96,302 for 6 Ford Interceptor Patrol Sport utility vehicles for revised total amount not to exceed $337,727, and item 19 was removed from consent for a presentation.
All right, before I asked for a motion, I neglected to make a statement about consent items. An item may be removed from consent and discussed at the request of a member of the public or council member. Is there anyone on the council that would like a consent item removed for further discussion? And we have Councilmember Bavaro that requested that item 19 be removed for further discussion. Is there anyone else on the council that would like anything removed for discussion? Seeing none, is there anyone in the public that would like an item removed from consent for further discussion or comment? All right, seeing none, may I have a motion to approve the consent calendar as read?
Motion to approve.
I have a motion by Councilmember Wright. Second by Councilmember Scudia-Brayton. And will the clerk please call the roll for consent items?
Councilmember Bavaro.
Aye.
Councilmember Williams.
Aye.
Councilmember Wright.
Aye.
Councilmember Scudia-Brayton.
Aye.
Vice Mayor Alvarez.
Aye.
Councilmember Ricky.
Aye.
And Mayor Zwallen.
Aye. Carries unanimously. Next, we will go back to item
12, 19, 12, 12.
I thought 19 was first.
Is it 2?
We will go back to item 12. Consider approving a change in ownership request for retail cannabis dispensary CR and D Incorporated, and Councilmember Alvarez has recused himself.
Move to approve.
Second.
All right, this is a resolution approving the change in ownership request for retail dispensary CR&D Incorporated, resulting in Carolina Fernandez acquiring 80% of CR&D Incorporated. And we have a motion by Councilmember, by Councilmember Ricky, second by Councilmember Bavaro. And will the clerk please call the roll for item 12?
Councilmember Bavaro.
Aye.
Councilmember Williams.
Aye.
Councilmember Wright.
Aye.
Councilmember Scudia-Brayton.
Aye.
Councilmember Ricky.
Aye.
And Mayor Zwallen.
Aye, so that carries 6-0 with Vice Mayor Alvarez recusing himself. Now we will go to item 19, This is consider approving the First Amendment with HF&H Consultants LLC, Walnut Creek, California, for the solid waste haulers audit and performance review, increasing the agreement amount by $99,855 to a revised total amount not to exceed $249,855 over the term of the original agreement. And welcome, Rosine.
Good evening, Mayor and Council members. Rosine Nguyen, Integrated Waste Program Manager with Public Works. So on June 27, 2023, under Resolution 2023-341, Council approved an agreement with HF&H LLC to conduct an audit and performance review of the city's haulers and to analyze the current rate setting methodology and test it for validity. This project consists of 2 phases. Phase 1 is the HF&H audit, which we'll be discussing in hearing item number 2. And the second phase of the agreement with HF&H will cover and include creating new rate-setting methodology. We are requesting a amendment to the HF&H agreement to include contract negotiations with the both of the solid waste haulers and the city. And I'm happy to answer any questions.
All right, thank you for your presentation. Does council have any questions of staff? Councilmember Bavaro.
Thank you, Mayor. I do have questions as the consultant from HF&H present to be.
They are, yes.
Because that would be directed towards him.
Okay, Rick. Rick is the vice president with HF&H.
Thank you.
All right, welcome.
Thank you. Good evening.
Good evening. Thank you for coming down. I just, in reviewing your report, 17 pages, I do have some questions just for clarification. In looking at your findings, it states that Jilton's general and administrative allocation attributed an additional $96,000 in indirect expenses to the city based on incorrect conclusion of commercial commodity revenue. That is not part of the franchise. Can you elaborate on that and explain that to me?
I can, but I would first like to mention that is part of the presentation. That's not part of this item. Is now the time?
Okay.
Because
no,
that will be covered in future.
In the future.
Presentation.
Okay, in the future presentation.
Yes.
Okay.
Tonight.
In tonight's presentation.
Yes.
Okay, I didn't know that.
The next item, yes.
Okay. Then this is going to go real quick.
Okay.
On the recommendations, you mentioned something about a third-party review of Jilton's allocation of costs. It says because Jilton's software for allocation of costs to the city is integrated with their accounting software, HF&H recommends that the software be reviewed periodically by a third party for their accuracy and reasonableness. Was that review of the allocation of costs of the software for accuracy and reasonableness during this audit? Has that been done yet?
The observation, and again, this is all material we'll be covering in the next item.
Okay.
This is specifically
Okay.
for
We'll move right along.
increasing the phase 2.
Okay, I didn't realize that, but
Okay.
when we talk about the allocation, hauling allocations, with Bertolotti, the report states that in Modesto, the operations of a separate entity from its own corporation franchise, which provides the city with a separate audit financial statement, the separate set of financial statements that are used in their annual reports, which are coded and internal systems. So they are able, through their private or through their audit, be able to just present Modesto's allocation of costs. And with Jilton's, Jilton is a percentage, am I correct?
That is correct. They have to
everything is aggregated into the audit, the financial statements, and then it's based on a percentage. Do you know how often Jilton reviews and reassess those percentages of reallocation because of the growth changes in our city?
Yeah, and I'll just touch on that. It's ongoing, so it's within the system itself, and it allocates the costs on an ongoing basis based on the actual labor being expended for the services. But again, anything within the report We'll have more than a dozen slides. Hopefully we'll illuminate some of these, maybe answer some of the questions you're posing tonight, but if you're going to hold on to those.
Okay.
And if they're not answered during the slides, we'd be happy to.
Okay, and then
elaborate.
a final, after reviewing the report, I understand what you're saying here in your presentation. So am I correct to understand that there is not, because Jilton uses a percentage of allocation of costs, that there is not enough information to verify what they actually are charging ratepayers?
The information is, it is brought together on a corporate level and has to be line by line allocated based on different allocators amongst the different services that are provided to other jurisdictions as well. So it's a manual process and an unaudited process for which they allocate the costs to the City of Modesto.
It's unaudited, but the city requires an audit.
The city requires an audit from the corporate and the parent company, and that is done, just not the allocation to the specific jurisdictions.
Okay. And then because they do have a percentage of allocations that you just explained, how much risk in having a system with that kind of allocation of cost, what kind of risk does that create to the ratepayers of Modesto, if any?
Not really any risk. It just takes annual review and a deep dive into those costs that new franchise agreement will afford the City of Modesto to align some guardrails around the information that needs to be provided in order to substantiate those allocations of what's reasonable on an ongoing basis.
Okay, and one last question. Thank you. In reading your report, I sensed that it was difficult to get information because of the software and not being able to get into the hard drive and get the methodology used in understanding exactly what the percentage of allocation of costs go. So how do we get more, what recommendations do you have on how we get more information so that way we make Modesto accurate and we know the percentages of those allocations are correct and that we're not subsidizing other cities or counties?
Great question. That is one of the recommendations we will discuss in the presentation, but just on a high level, drafting a franchise agreement which allows for more transparency of costs on a more frequent basis, so it can be monitored over time to see if there's major changes that would necessitate higher costs if there's additional services being provided. So it's a little bit more oversight and reporting on behalf of the haulers to the city so city staff can monitor that.
Thank you for your time.
Welcome.
All right, any other questions from council members? Rosa Escudia-Brayton
Thank you,
for
Mayor.
item 19.
Sir, if you wouldn't mind stepping back up there. That's okay. No worries. So just to clarify, so we have consent item 19 and we have a presentational item as well. They touch on the same but similar issues. The consent item 19 is to approve an increase in the service of an audit and performance review for the haulers. It changes, the recommendation is from $99,855 to a revised total amount not to exceed $249,855. And this is over 2.5 time increase. It doubles and a half. What justifies? Can you remind me or share more information of what justifies that?
So the amendment is a request to move on to phase 2. First, we've done data gathering and looked at the state of the current methodology within the franchise agreements and noticed some things that the franchise agreements could include around transparency of information, new services that have been enacted due to state regulations that aren't memorialized in the current franchise agreements. So this is a negotiation, dual negotiation with each hauler to reframe the franchise agreement to give the city a little more information, a little more power and discretion on how services are provided moving forward. More of a state-of-the-art franchise agreement.
And that level of service wasn't initially included in the original agreement?
That's correct.
Okay. All right, thank you very much.
Yes.
All right, any other questions from council members regarding item 19? All right, seeing none, I'll open this up to the public. Any comments regarding item 19 from the public? All right, welcome.
Sebastian Jones, I'm looking at this item 19, but he said he had a presentation. Thank you, Mr. Rowan. Thank you, Rosa. If you can prove this, don't you think we should listen to the presentation? Maybe I'm wrong,
Yes, that's coming up in item 21.
but don't you think that we should listen to that before you?
It's for the work that has already been done.
Okay. Now this cost is something that the city of Modesto, the people of Modesto, is we gonna be footing this bill? It says waste. Maybe I'm lost, but I'm trying to catch on. Is this got something to do with garbage?
Yes.
Do it got something to do with the garbage cans at my house?
Yes.
Well, hold on. Thank you.
Uh-huh.
So we're going to be having an increase on one of them garbage bins, I guess. I don't know. I'm just trying to feel my way. But we're going to put this bill, right, the people that have garbage, right? Because we're paying for a blue garbage container. You guys need to pick it up because I don't even use it. But I'm paying for it. So I'm just trying to, I'm not trying to be funny. I'm just trying to get on the bandwagon. So when people talk to me, because I'm out there in the field, so forgive me if I'm lost, but I just want to make sure that the citizen of Modesto ain't finna pay another $20. Don't forget I'm lost.
Right, yes.
I'm just trying to catch on. But it's got something to do with some waste. But, okay, I'm gonna sit down. But what I'm trying to just say, he has a presentation, item 21. I think we should listen to that first. Set this to the side. Because once you approve this, he can say anything. You was asking key question, but he said that's gonna be on the next deal. So I think if it's allowable, as a citizen, can we listen to 21 first before you guys make the decision on 19? Mayor. You in control.
It's complete, two different topics
Is
completely.
it?
Yeah, one is for an audit.
Okay, I'm sorry.
Yeah, that's all right.
I'm just trying to, catch on the bandwagon.
Yeah.
I'm trying to keep up. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I hope I was looking out. I'm trying to look out for my people.
Thank you. Stay tuned for item 21.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, my dear.
All right, any other comments from the public regarding consent item 19? All right, I'll close public comments. Any council member comments regarding this item? All right, I have a resolution approving the First Amendment for consultant services with HF&H Consultants, LLC, Walnut Creek, California, for the solid waste haulers audit and performance review, increasing the agreement amount by $99,855 to a new total amount not to exceed $249,855 over the term of the original agreement, and authorizing the city manager or his designee to execute the amendment. Do I have a motion?
Motion.
Second.
Motion by Councilmember Williams, second by Councilmember Ricky. Will the clerk please call the roll for this item?
Councilmember Bavaro.
Aye.
Councilmember Williams.
Aye.
Councilmember Wright.
Aye.
Councilmember Scudia-Brayton.
Aye.
Vice Mayor Alvarez.
Aye.
Councilmember Ricky.
Aye.
And Mayor Zwollen.
Aye, so that carries unanimously. I did receive a blue card regarding consent item 18, which has already been approved, but if you would like to make a comment about that item, now would be the time. This is Carla.
So, I was hoping you guys hadn't approved it because I was hoping that this would have been an opportunity for City Council not to approve it. This is this is being used from the Public Works fleet, and you guys went ahead and approved the purchase of 6 Ford Interceptor Patrol Sport utility vehicles, which I heard from the $96,000 were on the website that the reason that you guys are paying those additional $96,000 is because you guys didn't file the claim on time. So I don't know what's going on with you guys. Like, this is already unreasonable buying those 6 when the community has been telling you, stop adding more cost towards the city to maintain those vehicles. Again, another example of you guys brushing us off when we show up here and literally dialogue with you guys. Stop doing this. This isn't even defunding the police more. It's just stop increasing funding towards the police. I think that's the most basic saying that we could say. With those 96,000 on that thing where like you guys have like not met a deadline, that's why like prices increased and you guys ended up increasing the cost towards the city. What the heck, man? Like literally, a lot of you guys, this city is so car dependent, and you guys could have used that money for other things, and on top of that, you missed a deadline, and that's why those $96,000 are being asked to increase. Again, we're asking you, stop increasing funding, and you guys continue to do it. It's not defunding the police. We're not saying, hey, take away that. Because I know you guys would be totally against that. But I don't think you guys are hearing us when we say stop increasing funding towards police. And that thing is just straight up irresponsible. This is my example where I'm saying you guys are no better than us. Are y'all procrastinating on this or what? $96,000 just because y'all missed a deadline and the price is increased. Who's working for you guys? I don't understand why this budget is like that.
Excuse me.
So, maybe in the future, since you guys already approved this, when these things come up, hopefully, unanimously, all of you say no. Or at least a brave person in the city council starts saying no. That's when I will know, hey, my community is showing up, I'm hearing them, maybe I should listen to them because your community is showing up. Maybe it's not the community members that you want, but it's the community members that you guys campaign for our votes. $96,000 because y'all missed the deadline and the price is increased? I don't know. But that's on you. I don't know.
$96,000 that could go to the
All right. Next on the agenda is council comments and reports. Do any of the council members have any comments and reports? Councilmember Bavaro.
Thank you, Mayor. 3 years ago, Detective Michael Merkitis, known as Mikey by those who know him of the Modesto Police Department, was almost killed in the line of duty. A local kid, Michael attended Woodrow Elementary School, Somerset Middle School, Bayer High School, and earned his bachelor's degree in criminology from the California State University in Fresno. Mikey is a second-generation Modesto police officer, joining the police department in April 2014. His dream was to work in the street gang unit, which became a reality in 2017. During his tenure on the street gang unit, Mikey was involved in the arrest and prosecution of violent criminals preying on members of our community. On the evening of August 14th, 2021, Mikey encountered one of those violent criminals during a search warrant service. The street gang was assisting the Modesto police officers with an investigation at a residence in southeast Modesto related to the sales of narcotics. After researching the property and using a loudspeaker calling the occupants out of the residence, everyone who exited assured the police officers there was nobody inside the house. Mikey and his team were tasked with searching the inside of the house, ensuring it was safe for other officers to enter and search for evidence of narcotic sales. When Mikey entered the last bedroom of the residence, he and his team were encountered by a barricaded suspect who ambushed the police officers and opened fire from a barricaded position. Mikey was shot twice, once just below his protective vest and once on his protective vest. The shot below Mikey's vest severed an artery leading to his leg. A rescue team was formed by a group of officers and sergeants who confronted the suspect and rescued Mikey, carrying him out of the house and driving him to Memorial Hospital. Mikey spent the next 12 days in a medically induced coma, underwent 7 surgeries, and needed to have his right leg amputated above the knee due to complications from the severed artery. Mikey traveled down a long road to recovery. When he was released from Memorial Hospital and entered a local rehabilitation hospital, Mikey, the Modesto Police Department, neighboring law enforcement agencies, and other communities stood outside Memorial Hospital during Mikey's transfer, cheering him on and sharing words of support. Mikey was released from the rehabilitation hospital on September 11th, 2021, 28 days after being shot, and returned to his wife and 16-month-old daughter. 16-month-old daughter. Mikey had numerous discussions with Police Chief Gillespie, Mayor Zawalin, who offered support to him on any decision he made with regards to retiring or returning to work. On November 28, 2022, Mikey returned to work at the Modesto Police Department in a modified duty assignment with limited hours. In August 2023, Mikey was cleared to work full-time with the Modesto Police Department with some work restrictions. Detective Rakaitis is assigned to Investigate Service Division and now runs the Sex and Arson Offenders Registration Program and assists with ballistic forensic investigations with the Violent Crime Unit. Mikey has asked me to extend his sincere thanks and appreciation to Mayor Sue Zawalin, City Council members, City Manager Joe Lopez, City HR Department, Chief Gillespie, and the Police Department leadership for supporting him through an extremely difficult time in his life and giving his teammates the tools to training to save his life. Mikey is proud to continue serving the City of Modesto and is proud of his fellow police officers within the Modesto Police Department. Thank you, Mayor.
You're welcome. Next, Councilmember Ricky.
Thanks, Mayor. I want to start off by thanking Modesto PD for their work in Enslin Park. The work by our rangers, Chat, and our police officers are improving safety in the park, and that's an important priority. I also want to encourage you to continue this work because it makes our community safer. I also serve on the Stanislaus Regional Transit Board, and what we've found is that when communities put their differences aside and choose to serve the whole community, good things happen. And a good example of that is how the increased ridership is my time. We saw ridership grow by 3.1 million, which is almost double from 2021, and that's awesome. I think working regionally is the future, and I'm looking forward to continuing to explore those opportunities. I also want to thank our Parks Department for their hard work. Mary Grogan Soccer Park is getting a cricket pitch along with some new playgrounds. That's awesome. There's also a new beach volleyball court at East La Loma Park. The dive-in movie that they did over at Johansson was sold out and really exciting. And it was also great. Lots of people are signing up for soccer in the new city soccer program. So there's so much potential in our parks, and I really appreciate you guys working to make them better. Finally, I just want to thank Modesto PD and Modesto Fire for their hard work over the 4th of July weekend. They issued a total of 52 illegal fireworks citations with fines totaling over $96,000. And so I'm looking forward to continuing that work to reduce illegal fireworks in our community. Thanks, Mayor.
You're welcome. Next is Councilmember Escudia Brayton.
Thank you, Mayor. I just wanted to thank the community and our police for coming together for yet another very successful National Night Out. And that was a wonderful evening where we initiated the celebration with a rally at the police station, jazzed up our team, and we left the rally and we all dispersed into various districts in the community, engaging with community, families. There was various activities throughout Modesto, but what they all did is it gave the opportunity for community firsthand and law enforcement firsthand to engage in conversation. There was conversations, handshaking. It was a good thing. It was a lovely thing, and was very glad to be part of it. We all participated, and again, it was a wonderful National Night Out 2024. Also, earlier this year, I wanted. We might recall the California Office of Emergency Services requested assistance from law enforcement and fire to help with what was a park fire. It's called the Park Fire of the Region. This was a multi-acre fire scenario, and it was by Chico, and they requested statewide assistance. Modesto responded and deployed some of its men and women to assist, and they did. They went there in 48-hour shifts. I know that Texas also sent 100 of their men and women to help with this California fire. Thankfully, they all came back after serving their duty, came back safe, back to their families, and good thing about it is, even though we sent our personnel there, all of the expenditures incurred by the city for their services to that fire outside of Modesto will be reimbursed. So number one, it showed goodwill towards our extended family outside of Modesto, but it also covered our expenditures. I had also, last week, had the wonderful opportunity to participate in the community activity that showcased the beautiful classic culture that we have here in Modesto, and that was at the Del Rio Premier Car Show. There was hundreds of people there, hundreds of cars. It was a hot day, but it was so cool because they had hot rods, low riders, and just the gamut there, and it was a really fun community event. I had the privilege of awarding the best lowrider of show, so presented that award. So again, it was a wonderful opportunity. And lastly, I also attended a 4th of July event at El Ramatito, which is in West Sacramento. And what was so cool about this 4th of July event is that they, instead of having fireworks that burned and ruined and damaged our air quality and impacted our health and left terrible trash out in the afterwards, after the aftermath, they utilized a grant provided by the Air Board to fund a drone light show. So how cool was that? They were sparks and lights and all this, the celebration of our Independence Day, but it was not with burned smoke, so it was not harmful to the air quality. So over 5,000 people were there celebrating this, and I was glad to be part of it, and it showed a lot of community spirit. That's it. Thank you, Mayor.
Councilmember Williams.
Thank you, Mayor. There was a few things that took place in our community in the last few weeks, but the one that I'm very proud of that happened for our streets teams was in front of Modesto High School, all the way down Paradise, also on I Street from 4th to Modesto High School, where they created a new roundabout in that section. Also created another roundabout over off Chicago, which is off of Paradise, which is outstanding. It does help the traffic, does help a lot of the students from getting from either they're going from Marshall School or coming from, from Robinson Road or Modesto High. It just really helps them navigate through the cars and the traffic. So thank you to the city streets for getting that done. It looks excellent. It hasn't been done in many, many, many years, and it's a great improvement to West Modesto. I'm not sure if my colleague, Vice Mayor Alvarez, is going to speak on that as well. If I spoke on it before he did, I'm sorry. However, I did want to say thank you to Angela Drew, who is our newest Port Laureate. She's not here. That's why I was going to say something earlier, but she wasn't here. But she is an African American, and she is the first African American to be a poet laureate for the City of Modesto. I'm very proud of that, and I congratulate her. Also, National Night Out did take place last Tuesday, and it was great. I was really eager to try to get to at least all of the 15 stops in my district, but I was only able this year to get to 6 of them, but Councilman Varvaro got to 14 of them, so I don't know how he was able to get that done. Maybe he just did a drive-by, but for the most part, thank you to the City of Modesto, particularly the police department, for going into and helping the community be engaged by being able to protect their belongings, their neighborhoods, and come together and enjoy one another, learn more about who their neighbors are. Some of the neighborhoods we went to, we did stay a little longer, but some of them had never gone to a National Night Out event, and they were able to meet neighbors and be able to bring their children. It was just the right thing to do to boost the morale in Modesto. Lastly, I do want to thank our city government as well, which would be Patrick Crawley, who does our fleets and things of that nature. They're on number 18. It's great that we put an order in a while back, and because of the fact there was a shortage of vehicles, that we couldn't get the order right away. However, we already put the order in. Because it took so long, they had to upgrade us, and they upgraded us with a bonus. It would cost us 4 or 5 times as much more for the upgrade, and we're thankful that they were able to do that at a very, 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 very minimal cost. That helped us. So that's all, Mayor. Thank you.
You're welcome. Any other reports from council members at this time? All right, I have some things to report that hopefully are helpful for those that are here or listening to get a flavor of a day in the life of the mayor and some of the things that we do to improve community relationships. The county did put on what was called a day on the bench, where I was invited to visit courtrooms and see what it is like in a courtroom, and also to get a brief tour of our new courthouse. And it was nice to be invited and to be considered, and it was to inform legislators of the work that they do. Then the district attorney's office has interns, and they met with me for a meet and greet. And there again that was another opportunity to share what we do as what I do as mayor and as a city council. Very interesting meeting that I had that I think some of you may find interesting, but the Brown Act, which is what we live by on the city council, was first instituted by Ralph Brown, who was an assembly member from Modesto, California. And his daughter, Valerie, lives here. She's approaching her 90s years of age, and I met with her one-on-one, and she shared with me some insight into why her father brought forth that legislation, and it is really about doing the people's business in public. And one of the things she had written, and this is a quote from her father, who grew up in Modesto also, but he said, "The people in delegating authority do not give their public servants the right to decide what is good for the people to know and what is not good for them to know." So that gave me some insight into the fact that the Brown Act is not just doing the people's business in public like we are doing tonight. It goes even beyond that. That we don't decide what is good for everyone to know and what is not good for everyone to know. We discuss it all here, and I'm proud of that. On July 26th, the Village at Free Will Baptist Church was inaugurated. That is 9 units of permanent supportive housing that is behind a church, tucked behind, in an area. There's also parking there. The units are all self-contained and will be an opportunity for more housing for those that are in special need. And the the church has worked directly with many of the people that will hopefully soon be living there. They've been unhoused and in great need of housing. I meet monthly with the city manager with our Modesto Bee editorial board. So that's another engagement tool that we have to hopefully get the word out to the community of what we're doing. And they ask us questions. We do not know ahead at all what they're going to ask, but that's okay. I am prepared to answer any questions that anyone has in the community. There was a Sutter Health Clinic groundbreaking on Sylvan, where there are going to be dozens of residents and interns working to care for the people in our community, ultimately, of course, for their physician training. It's very lengthy, and year by year there will be more providers added. But that is something that is going to really impact our community, and it is especially focused on helping people with many of the societal problems that we experience in our community now that we're much more open about than we were a few years back even. We have a 10th Street tour for every single new employee that comes through the city. These are almost weekly, and I meet with as well as the city manager and our deputy city managers and staff, all of them. Meet every single new employee to welcome them to our community and express gratitude for making our city better. I was able to tour a place called Advocacy of Success, and this is for this helps developmentally disabled people in our community prosper, have hopefully training for jobs. I was so impressed with how positive the teachers were, as well as those that participate in it. National Night Out has been mentioned. I won't elaborate any more on that, but that was last Tuesday night. It's always the first Tuesday in August, and that was the reason that we did not have a city council meeting, because we were all out in the community celebrating with those neighbors that were willing to make our community better. We had a real estate summit, which was very enlightening and informative for me. Some of us were there. I stayed the entire time, learned a lot of information about what's happening in our community and what some of the needs are, some of the problems, some of the challenges, and also what we can do better. Modesto City Schools construction tour I participated on. We've all seen all the construction in the school districts. We had a police department academy graduation, and we had 5 officers that graduated. It was really great to be a part of that. And every month I attend the Clergy Council, which is a group of pastors in our community, clergy that meet now 11 years. We celebrated today, it's been 11 years. And they are working directly with, and they are, I would say, almost all African-American pastors. And we meet regularly and discuss police-community relations. Those are just a few of the activities that I participated in. Any other comments? Councilmember Alvarez. Vice Mayor Alvarez, excuse me.
Thank you, Mayor. You kind of caught me off guard there. Anyhow, I want to talk about a few things tonight. Housing, the Southwest Modesto Plan, and parks and public safety. So the City of Modesto offers residents the rental housing safety program, which was implemented last year. Shortly after I took office, my colleagues and I voted to activate that and invest, I think it was a little north of $400,000 towards the program. This program specifically aims to ensure the safety and well-being of responsible residents and rental properties throughout the city. This program helps improve the quality of rental housing stock in our community and helps combat slumlords, absentee landlords, and it helps to reduce and combat altogether substandard rental housing and pests, roaches, infestations of all sorts. And so I'm happy that this is underway. I've had several constituents reach out to me, and we've helped them, and I'm glad that this is actually working. The rental housing safety program is a collaborative effort between the City Council, tenant advocacy groups, and various community stakeholders. And by working together, the City of Modesto aims to create a thriving and safe rental housing stock that benefits both tenants and property owners alike. In terms of housing, yeah, and like Mr. Jones said, he was an active advocate for this project to be launched, and we wouldn't have been able to done it without people like him. So my hat's off to you, Mr. Jones. Last year, the city co-applied for an approximately $33 million investment from the state for an approximately 160,000 square foot 6-story apartment building in downtown on 7th Street, known as the 7th Street Village, which has been approved. This housing development will also go towards transportation improvements that provide tenants and the public with affordable alternatives to driving and creating a walkable downtown corridor. This complex will also offer early education programs and an education center and a bike storage hallway as well. So that's been approved. All of these things have been approved. It's just a matter of activation now and dealing with them on a case-by-case basis in terms of the rental housing program. But that housing project is approved. The Southwest Modesto plan, I'm going to transition here. The city is developing a Southwest Modesto plan, which serves as a blueprint for future development of the west side, specifically my home area, my community I grew up in. My family got to the west side in the mid-50s, and subsequently we've been in the region ever since. But also the Crow's Landing corridor will be included into this plan. This plan provides guidance on land use, economic development, transportation, infrastructure, and other issues for the west side in this Crow's Landing corridor. And as part of the project, the city has conducted an extensive community engagement process to hear directly from residents. Because it's not what Councilmember Alvarez wants, it's not what my colleagues want, it's what the community is saying, and then we implement it. So the city has conducted an extensive community engagement process to hear from residents, community groups, and local and regional agencies and advocates. And the community will continue to be engaged throughout this project, including workshops and a series of focused stakeholder group meetings as well. In terms of parks, briefly, the city is nearing groundbreaking for the $8.5 million investment that we got from the state for modernizing Cesar Chavez Park, or AKA 4th Street Park, and that will just enhance the infrastructure. It'll add a new pool and splash pad, new soccer courts, a skate park, a public speaking area with a canopy and gazebo for shade, and then several basketball courts as well. And it'll have an actual pool in addition to the splash pad. And again, Mr. Jones was a key proponent of advocating for that funding from the state as well last year. In addition to that, we're nearing the groundbreaking for also another $8.5 million for Martin Luther King Park that we received from the state for a modernization of that park's infrastructure, and altogether that whole parcel of land is going to be modernized. The building itself is going to be a modern architectural style building, so that's exciting. And again, my hat's off to Mr. Jones for his advocacy on that. And then lastly, I want to talk about public safety briefly, and I want to state some 2023 stats here. I want to thank also, before I state those stats, I want to thank Modesto Police Department under the leadership of Chief Brandon Gillespie, who's homegrown, grown up here, lived here all his life, and for his dedication to making Modesto a safe place to live, work, and raise our families. And in 2023, we saw, and I'm looking forward to the 2024 statistics, so stay tuned, everybody in the audience, for next year's report. Homicide was down in 2023 by 22%. Auto theft was down 6%, property crime was down 16%, and violent crime was down altogether by 15%. So, I mean, these numbers, this is a testament to Modesto being a safer place to live, work, and raise our families. And I recently purchased my first home in the West Side, and that's where I chose to start my family, and that's what I'm going to do. And I'm confident in that decision because of these statistics here. And I acknowledge the fact that we have a lot of community members whose points are valid, whose advocacy is valid, and I want to make sure that we all understand here that what has been decades of neglect for housing, decades of neglect for basic infrastructure and services on the west side cannot be corrected in the year and a half that I've been in office. It takes time for these things to transpire. It takes time and effort for these things to come about, and bureaucracy moves slow. But y'all have my word that I will do my best to continue to work towards investing into District 2 and making sure that it's a good place to live, work, and raise our families. So I appreciate y'all's advocacy. I really do. It's not falling on deaf ears.
Thank you. Any other reports from council members? All right, does the city manager have any comments and reports? All right, next on the agenda is hearings. Item 20, a hearing to consider an ordinance amending Plan Development Zone PD 470 to change the allowable uses to allow certain highway commercial C3 uses for property located at 1101 North Carpenter Road, APN 081-052-045. And we have Jessica Hill.
Thank you, Mayor, City Council. So just a little bit of background on the project. In January of this year, Juan Bautista Mendoza submitted an application to amend his plan development to include more uses. And so he was looking to expand the uses from solely being C1 uses to including those that are also C3 uses. And this was due to provide as many options as possible to potential tenants to ensure flexibility and opportunity. So the original plan development was adopted by council in 1990, and this was a transition from a low-density residential to a C1 zone and off-street parking as allowable uses. So here's the site plan itself, and so this is on the corner of Carpenter and Torrid Avenue. It currently allows for C1 uses such as a hair salon and social services organizations, and no development is proposed at this time. So in part of our analysis, we review the neighboring parcels. So to the north, there's C3 uses, including a tobacco store. South has a PD, which is C1 uses. There's also a Dutch Brothers and a grocery store. To the east, it allows for light industrial. And then to the west is that planned development residential, which is single family uses. So the property against planned development would alter to include C3 uses with some exceptions. And so we wanted to ensure all the exceptions would be in accordance to what the neighborhood would actually accept in there. And so all uses that are proposed would be allowed in C1, C2, and C3 zones. As we look at our general plan zoning, this designates the area as commercial, so it's consistent with our general plan. And as we referred the project to our city departments, there were no concerns relating the change in allowable uses. So what we wanted to do is, because of the proximity to residential, which is about 50 feet, we wanted to ensure that all of the uses that we are allowing were compatible with its surroundings. So we did want to help ensure that there was no negative impacts such as traffic, noise, and odor that affect the nearby residences. And so we did exclude some of the C3 uses, which include heavy and light vehicle services as well as large recycling facilities. And the applicant had no problems with that. So these are a list of the new allowable uses which are allowed under C3 zones, and so this would be additional tenants that the applicant can actually pursue for the use of those buildings. So some of them includes general retail, a janitor service, as well as light vehicle rental or sales. So this item was heard by the Planning Commission on April 15th, and it was recommended to move to City Council to approval. And then we also prepared the CEQA initial study, which ensure that it aligns with our general master plan EIR. So no new environmental was required. And with that, I'm happy to answer any questions.
All right, any questions from council members regarding item 20? Councilmember Scudia-Braden.
Thanks for that report, Jessica. During the Planning Commission hearing, was there any public concern or any commission discussion around this proposal?
No, there was not.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, Councilmember Wright.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you for your report, Jessica. What was the vote from was it a unanimous vote or was it a split vote?
It was a unanimous vote. It was a unanimous vote.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right. I will now open the public hearing. Are there any members of the public that would like to come forward regarding item 20?
I'm back. I approve.
Oh, that was short.
All right. Any other members of the public on this item? Seeing none, I will close public comments. Are there any council member comments? All right, I have a motion introducing and waiving the first reading of an ordinance amending Planned Development Zone PD to change the allowable uses to allow certain highway commercial uses for property located at 1101 North Carpenter Road. Do I have a motion?
Motion to approve?
Motion by Councilmember Wright. Second?
I'll second it.
Second by Councilmember Escutia Brayton. Will the clerk please call the roll for this item?
Councilmember Bavaro.
Aye.
Councilmember Williams.
Aye.
Councilmember Wright.
Aye.
Councilmember Escutia Brayton.
Aye.
Vice Mayor Alvarez.
Aye.
Councilmember Ricky. And Mayor Swallen.
Aye, so it carries unanimously. Next is item 21, the hearing to consider the annual adjustment to the maximum rate schedule for city solid waste collection services provided by the solid waste haulers to become effective September 1st, 2024, approving a fuel rate adjustment to the maximum rate schedule for city solid waste collection services provided by the haulers to become effective September 1st, 2024, approving the update to the schedule of cash security deposits and fees for self-haul residents and businesses, and approving the final report and recommendation of HF&H Consultants LLC regarding City of Modesto 2023 solid waste financial review and rate analysis. And we will have a staff report. Welcome.
Good evening, Mayor and Council members. Today I will be presenting the proposed annual adjustment to the maximum rate schedule for the solid waste collection services, and HF&H will be presenting about the final report for the audit they conducted for the solid waste franchise haulers. So in Modesto, we do have two contracts with private sector companies, our solid waste haulers. They collect residential, commercial, and industrial solid waste, and solid waste includes garbage, organics, and recyclables. In the map, you see Jilting covers about 2/3 of the city, and Bertolatti covers about 1/3 of the city. The solid waste rate setting process is governed by the Modesto Municipal Code under Section 5-5.131, and the process is as follows. Rates are reviewed annually and fuel charges are reviewed quarterly. They are adjusted as needed under the direction of the city. The haulers must provide the city with audited detailed financial statements within 120 days at the close of the fiscal year. Rate-setting methodology is a cost-based analysis based on the most recent complete fiscal year. For this case, it's fiscal year 22-23. The lowest cost hauler for each service type determines the recommended rates. The base rate is adjusted. The base rate is adjusted on the cost of service from fiscal year 22-23. The base rates captures operational costs, additional fees, and special programs, which are layered on top of this rate. For the green waste fees, for this fiscal year, it was adjusted in according with the Western Region CPI of 3.2%, which mirrors the increase that we applied for the compost facility. The organic waste pre-processing, it was somewhat of a new fee. It was added in July 2022 to aid the city to comply with SB 1383. The cost of the service is fully represented under the base rate, and this fee will be removed. The SB 1383 collection includes the collection of the recycling cart, the recycling container, which is part of the 3-container system that we have in the city, and also it was another fee that was added to ensure compliance with SB 1383. The addition of the blue container, it It was added on January 1st of 2023. Therefore, the cost of the service is 50% represented in the base rate, and it was reduced by half. The fuel rate adjustment, during the annual rate review, staff develops a fuel factor representing how much fuel on average is used for each customer, and that is for residential and commercial customers. This fuel factor is used for fuel rate adjustments for the following year. And for this fiscal year, we did use the average diesel prices for the most completed quarter, which is January through March 2024. The proposed residential maximum rates that will take effect on September 1st, 2024. It will be reduced by $1.08, and this is per account per month per customer. The proposed commercial maximum rates will be increased by $6.61, and this is per 1 cubic yard per one-time collection per week. And the proposed industrial maximum rates will be increased by $24.87. Under Resolution 1998-113, Council established a self-haul process for residents and businesses in lieu of regular solid waste services. As rates and fees are updated in the annual rate adjustments, they must also be updated for the self-haul rates. Self-haul deposit is being updated to reflect the current residential and commercial proposed rates. For the second part of the presentation, HFNH will be presenting about their recommendation and findings for the audit that was conducted. So HFNH was council approved to hire them under Resolution 2023-341 and to conduct an audit and performance review of the city haulers to analyze the current rate setting and methodology and test it for validity. This project consists of 2 phases. Phase 1 is the HFNH audit summary and results, and Phase 2 will include creating a new rate methodology. And today we have Rick Simonson. He's the Vice President from HFNH, and he will go over the report.
Mayor, a point of clarification at this point, if I may.
Mm-hmm.
So what Rosine has said to this point, was it based on the data from the audit, or it's separate from that? Because I have questions specific to what has been said, and if it's not related to the audit, should I wait till the audit is done before I ask Rosine questions about what she's presented to this point?
Would you like to respond to that?
Yeah, so the rate review is not related to the audit. We could not do anything without approval from council, so the rate is under the old approved rates by the council.
Should I hold off on my questions until the audit presentation is made?
That
Okay.
would be preferred.
All right,
Thank
thank
you.
you.
Good evening again, Honorable Mayor, council members. Again, I'm Rick Simonson, Senior Vice President with HFNH. We've undertaken the first phase of analyzing what was the 23-24 rates for the 2 haulers, Jilton and Bertolotti. And we'll have some findings here, and hopefully can answer some of the previously asked questions. Let's get started. Just a brief reminder. We just saw a comparison of what you're being asked to adopt for moving forward starting September. As a reminder, we looked at the rates and the costs behind your current rate structure. Our analysis was in 5 distinct steps. We reviewed the annual rate adjustment application that is submitted per the agreement. Both haulers submit their actual expenses, and I'll use 22-23 as an example, or the rate setting for 23-24 as an example. It relies on 21-22 actual costs. So what you have in place is a cost plus agreement where they look at their actual costs in any given year. And then for future rate setting, you look at those actual costs, and those are reimbursed to the haulers. So we looked at the 21-22 actual costs. We evaluated the hauler's allocation of the cost because we know each of the haulers do supply services to other jurisdictions. So we want to make sure just the costs associated with providing service to the city was included in those costs. Also, as a comparison, because allocations sometimes are just estimates, we do benchmark the costs that have been presented to similar jurisdictions, or we did that in this case, to see the reasonableness of where those costs are landing. We examine the current disposal, transfer, and pre-processing arrangements, which put some guardrails around where materials can be brought and the cost for processing or disposing of those materials. And we recalculate a hauler's tonnage reports and analyze detailed general ledgers by looking at invoices, testing the invoices, making sure these actually were costs that were incurred in providing service. So our benchmarking study looked at 4 different jurisdictions and in various areas to make a comparison, first of which is the operating costs on a per route basis. We know there are differences in the number of routes and different services that are provided each jurisdiction. So we distill that down on an operating cost per route, also a total cost per route. So operating costs would be those on-route costs, the labor, the drivers, the vehicles, the fuel. Total costs per route would include the overhead, the management, the billing, administration. And then we distill it into other areas so we can see how they're comparing with others. We looked at Stanislaus County, of which Bertolotti and Jilton do provide service, as well as Turlock Scavenger in Stanislaus County. We also looked at Stockton, who services provided by a larger national company, Republic. We looked at the city of Fresno. They are municipally ran operations, so they do the collections themselves, as well as Yuba Sutter, which is another regional, larger corporation, Recology, that provides service to San Francisco and various other regional areas. So we get a real swath of different types of companies. When we noticed, in many cases, they were within the range of what we saw in those 4 benchmarks, and we know 4 benchmarks are not a lot. So we just use this as a guide map, a map for looking where we should dig maybe deeper in analyzing and pulling invoices to make sure those costs were truly incurred. So there were some areas that were higher than what we saw in the range of those benchmarks that we saw, but nothing egregiously higher. Or once we started in on testing those invoices, nothing that we found was not actually used to provide service to the city. So some of the challenges as we went through, and then we'll get into recommendations on how we think in phase 2, the negotiations with the new franchise agreement can really help with transparency and allowable having data that will allow you to analyze these costs on an annual, quarterly basis by city staff and not have to go through a large audit process in the future. So one thing that was mentioned in the question was Jilton's financials are kind of combined, and they rely on allocations for their audited financials in a supplemental schedule. So that is something we found very difficult to understand the true nature of all the allocators. That's why we used our benchmark analysis to see where those costs were lying. So we would recommend, and you'll see in our recommendation slide, to get a more robust, detailed account of their allocations, which would require getting into some of their computer systems and understanding how these costs are being allocated. And the current franchise agreement does not designate the disposal location. In more standard agreements, we find the cities have more control. If they can direct where the flow of material is going, they may be able to negotiate better rates than where the haulers are bringing the materials. If you put that into the franchise agreement, you control where those materials are going and the cost to which those materials are either being disposed or processed. The annual rate adjustment does not limit the disposal costs, therefore impacting rates. It's at the full discretion of where the materials are being brought based on what the hauler chooses to do. Again, we're looking for more control and transparency in the new franchise agreement. The city compost facility does not currently have a rate for contaminated materials, organic materials that are brought there. They can turn away loads, which is a negative impact to the haulers if they have to haul that back because it's too contaminated. However, once it gets on the floor, is typically when you find out how much contamination is within the load. It can be processed, but at a much higher rate. So we recommend establishing a rate for those more contaminated materials. And as I mentioned, your current process is what we call a cost-plus arrangement. So again, it's whatever was expensed, and as long as it wasn't identified to not be used to provide solid waste service in some capacity, that cost is passed on to the ratepayers. We find in new franchise agreements having some guardrails around acceptable efficiencies of routing is a more efficient way of ensuring that ratepayers are paying just for the fair costs of the services being provided specifically to the City of Modesto, as again, both haulers provide service in a variety of service areas. Both haulers' financial information from the rate application that we did review did include some costs for pre-processing organics materials, and I think as you saw on a previous slide, there was a separate line item added to the base rate to pay for that. So we recommend that gets pulled out, which was pulled out for this new rate that you will be approving tonight. And for last year's increase, the council decided just to go with the CPI base increase and did not base it on those actuals. Therefore, they were not overcompensated in the past. Just wanted to point that out. And the lack of reporting requirements in the franchise agreement makes it difficult for staff to see the transparency, how the haulers are faring. So we do recommend more reporting requirements on a quarterly, monthly, and annual basis so staff can track how progress is being made within the city. If there's any issues, missed pickups, other service issues can be dealt with right away. So just a little more detail, and this was another question that was asked. One finding that we did see within Jilton's G&A allocation, so the general administrative costs, the overhead costs by administration, they allocate those costs based on cash receipts or revenues from their various service areas. So for example, if there were just two service areas, Modesto was one, Stockton was another, if 50% of the cash receipts, the revenues are derived from Modesto, they get 50% of the overhead costs. We found that in this allocation, there was attributed $96,000 in revenues that were not produced from the franchise agreement in the City of Modesto. So we would pull those receipts out when calculating that cost allocation. In doing that, that would have saved 73 cents on a per commercial cubic yard basis. And again, the asterisk there is last year's rates were not based on the actuals that we audited, but a CPI increase instead. So those actual costs were much higher, but you kept it below at a CPI increase. So they were not overcompensated. Chilton's and Bertolotti's overall per route cost is identified on the previous slide. In some areas we do find are slightly higher than the range of benchmarking that we did do. Nothing alarmingly so. We did look at specific invoices within those cost categories to verify those were costs that were needed to provide the service. And what you also saw in tonight's presentation for future rates, Bertolotti and Jilton's annual rate application does include costs that would double compensate them for that organics pre-processing if that additional charge was not removed from the calculation. Because now those costs are included in the base rate, because the base rate is based on, for this forthcoming year, 22 and 23 actuals, which now includes pre-processing costs within their financial records. So lastly, I've talked through most of this. Our recommendations really, maybe number 3 should have been first, negotiate an amendment to the current franchise agreement so we can memorialize the services that are being provided, and to shore up some of these areas where additional transparency is necessary so city staff can assess whether the actual costs that are incurred are truly being spent within the City of Modesto. Modifying the annual rate adjustment methodology is something we're exploring, and we'll renegotiate with the 2 contract haulers in similar rate-setting methodologies they use in other agreements to give more transparency and predictability for the council and the city's ratepayers on how rates will be adjusted in the future. So with that, I'll just pause because that's been a lot of information I've thrown at you.
All
And I
right.
know we have additional questions from the previous presentation as well.
Okay. All right. Is there additional report to be made?
Yeah, I'll only be presenting the staff recommendations. So today we have 4 proposed recommendations. The first one is a resolution approving the annual rate adjustment. The second one is a resolution approving the fuel rate adjustment. The third one is a resolution approving the update to the self-haul for residents and businesses. And then the fourth recommendation is a resolution approving the final report and recommendation of HFNH Consultants.
All right. Thank you very much for that report. Does council have any questions? David Wright.
Thank you, Mayor. Rick, thank you for your presentation. I do have a question. Walk me through the total fuel cost per route. What does that consist of?
I'm sorry, when you say, why is that consistent?
Yeah, walk me through the total fuel cost per route. Is that from leaving their facility, the route through the city, and then back to the facility?
That's correct. So, and there could be multiple collection points in those routes. So once it leaves the facility, they fill up at the facility, go on route, make the collections. They may fill up in half a day, need to go to either the transfer station or to the landfill to dump that before they return to the next route to collect for the rest of the day until they fill up again and make that trip back to those facilities. So it is from start to finish, and they may be making multiple trips to the disposal or transfer facilities.
Okay, so it does include the transfer station and landfill.
That's correct.
Okay.
And that's what makes it difficult to compare to other jurisdictions, how far away these transfer stations are and landfills.
That was my next question. Were you saying that our transfer stations and landfills are further away from other reasonable cities that you compare to?
The transfer stations are relatively the same as what we've seen, but the landfill is at a greater distance than the benchmark communities.
So would that make up the difference in the higher fuel cost rate, in your opinion?
There would be higher fuel costs. Does it make up the full difference? It's difficult to tell. Also, fuel volatility, when you can buy in bulk. That makes a difference when people are able, operators able to buy a large quantity of fuel at a cheaper rate. So there are a lot of variances. That's why we do try and get as many benchmarks as we can. We do try and keep it local, and there's just not always that information available.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right. Councilmember Bavaro.
Thank you, Mayor. All my questions were answered in your presentation. Thank you.
You're welcome.
And my second inquiry was yesterday with the city attorney. I had requested if we would be able to vote separately on each, is that how we're going to do it? So vote separately on residential?
Yes, we are.
Okay. Then I will hold back on my questions until we get to city staff. Thank you.
All right. The presentation is complete by city staff. So if you have any questions regarding item 21, now is the time.
Okay, I thought there, okay, yeah, I do have questions for city staff. Looking at residential, okay, the organic waste pre-processing is now going to be in the base rate. So in looking at the residential, my calculation is that the base rate is actually going up 4.5%, although the total amount for residential is going down 1.9%. The going down is due to, number one, 50% of the SB 1383 fees. And my question with residential is, why so much higher than what the Western Urban CPI projects at a 3.32?
So under the approved franchise agreement that we currently have, we are only allowed to do a cost-based analysis, and this is only looking at the actual spendings from the haulers. CPI, we do not adjust by CPI because it's not under the approved agreement that we have with both haulers.
But with other you were going to say something? Oh, I'm sorry.
I can wait.
No, go ahead.
If I could just elaborate a bit. I think you've touched on it. The base fee is now including some of the fees that used to be on top of the base fee. So you're seeing an actual decrease of $1.08 per month overall. So there are more costs now within the base fee because those were actual costs that were incurred by the hauler previously. They were projected costs. They were not yet in their financials because the services hadn't been provided yet. So there was an estimated cost that was added as an additional fee.
But there's only one fee, there's no more than one that I see here, and it's organic waste fee, pre-processing. The other fees are all city fees.
The 1383 collection fee is also a hauler fee.
Say that again, I'm sorry.
The 1383 recycling.
Right.
That is also remitted back to the hauler for their operations of the recycling collection. Yes.
Okay.
And now half of those costs have been included in their financials because the service started on January 1. Therefore, that's being reduced by 50% because it's already in the base charge.
Right. Okay, so then overall, it's decreasing 1.9% for residential. In looking at the commercial rate, the base fee, I believe, is increasing about 14%. Am I correct on that?
Yes.
Okay, so again, we get back to, we don't use Western Urban on, but we do with other, not vendors, but well, we do with other vendors. We, use that as a guide. So if you look at the total increase on the commercial, it's actually going up 10.1%. And is there a reason why we don't have weekly organic collection?
Yes, because for commercial businesses, they have their service based off of 1 cubic yard. So some businesses can have a collection up to 6 times a week, Monday through Saturday. And this is why we don't have the weekly organics rate added to the commercial businesses.
Okay. And looking at industrial, again, the total is closer to Western Urban, 5.0%. The only one that seems to be excessive to me is the commercial of 10.1%. So that's why I asked to have it separately voted on. Thank you. I actually don't have any more questions.
All right, Councilmember Escutia-Brayton.
Thank you, Mayor.
So am I correct to assume that the fee for organic waste that is required by SB 1383 and is now being included in the cost of service, by it being in the cost of service, it maintains us in compliance with 1383?
Yes, it is something that both haulers are performing, so yes, we are in compliance.
Wonderful. And then just to be crystal clear, there was a lot of information and a lot to dissect, to digest. So am I correct in hearing the residential rates are going to go down $1.08 per account per month, and the rates for industrial and commercial will go up?
Correct.
Okay. Thank you. That's it.
All right, any other questions from staff regarding item 21? Seeing none, I'll now open the public hearing. Are there any members of the public that would like to speak regarding this item?
Hello again. I don't know if this is a Jilton question or for city council, but with the rates for the trash, if you get the normal big size, but you get the half size, you're still paying the same price. I would think you'd want to incentivize people to not produce as much waste. And so is there a way that if you have a smaller trash can that your rate will go down? Because that's what I had thought would happen, but then when they said, oh, it's the same rate, I was like, well, I'll still get the smaller one because I don't use that a lot. Just saying, trying to think of saving costs for your community and also incentivizing people maybe to recycle more and use the green bin more.
All right, Rosine, would you like to address that?
Yeah, this is something we are looking at doing under the contract negotiation that we will have with the haulers.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Any other members of the public regarding item 21?
I want to piggyback on what she was saying about the trash can.
Excuse me, Sebastian, he'll need 5 minutes. Thank you.
What happened?
I just wanted to make sure you received your 5 minutes.
Oh, thank you,
3
my
minutes.
dear. Thank you, Mayor. No, just piggyback on that right there should have been established. Whether the large and small garbage, the small garbage is less, and then the big garbage is more. At the beginning of this SB 1380 something, that should have been already established. Why would you pay more money for a big one? But Mayor, I don't know, this must be the law. I'm learning as I go. Ain't too many people using that blue container. I guess they would call it solid waste, because they feel, and I hear it a lot because they come to me, that they're not separating the garbage for the city. So, but I guess we have to pay it, but it's a decrease of $1.08. So I guess you're letting the industrial people pay the rest, commercial. But how long is that decrease going to last?
You'll have to direct can you direct all of your questions to
I'm
me?
sorry, Mayor, forgive me. She was up and talking. But I'm trying to figure out that $1.08, is we good for a couple of years? Because I don't want them to come back and increase it to $2 or $3 and get their money back. So can you ask her?
Well, as was mentioned, they're reevaluated every year, so the rates.
I get it. So that means they'll come back, go back up to $2 on us. A little bit more. Okay. All right. Thank you, Mayor.
You're welcome. Any other members of the public regarding this item? Yes.
I just want to point out, you guys are all doing a wonderful job of being grown-ups and having a conversation. You do respond to people. You lied about how the Brown Act applies because you don't want to hear dissent when it comes to your violent killer cops in this town. You, right now, just demonstrated what a piece of crap this council is. You lied for years, Sue. You still haven't taken responsibility for your lie. You lied, you lied, you lied. And then you guys with your little repackaged, come on now. Somebody's mom came and said, oh, you guys need to play nice. Okay, but it doesn't change the content of what you're doing or the things that you've said or your invitation to a brawl, Mr. Bavaro.
All right, Stephen, this has to be regarding this
Yes, it's
item.
regarding it, because the formalities that you claim to be restricted by, you lied, you lied, you lied. You guys did a great job right now, and I just wanted to point that out. You did respond to Mr. Jones. Briefly, I don't have the thing in front of me, but the wording does allow for that. You guys do it all the time, and I just saw it and I wanted to point it out. You're a hypocrite and a liar and a shitty mayor.
All right, any other public comments regarding item 21?
Real funny. Real funny.
Good night.
Good
Hi, good evening. Apologies if this is off topic, but this renewal, I was just wondering whether it would include any changes to residents who are in a tenant rental contract to also have availability for the green and the blue recycling trash cans. Again, apologies if it's off topic.
Okay. Rosine, would you please respond?
So the 3 container system is offered to all multifamily dwellings as well as single-family dwellings. Right now, we are under a corrective action plan from Car Recycle, and we are doing site inspections to ensure everyone in the city is in compliance with SB 1383. So if somebody's multifamily dwelling, they do not have organics or recycling, eventually they will start getting it soon.
Thank you. All right, any other members of the public regarding item 21? I will close public comments. Any comments from council members? All right, this will be 4 separate votes. The first being a resolution approving, excuse me, I'm sorry, Councilmember Ricky.
Thank you.
Sorry, I didn't catch
No
it one time.
worries. First of all, I just want to thank Councilmember Bavaro for asking so many questions about this and really requesting this audit. I mean, it's not very often that you see residential rates go down, especially in like an inflationary environment like this. So it's really, really excellent work, and I know people are going to really appreciate it. And I also just wanted to share that you can share your trash can with a neighbor right now. So if you want to cut your rate and you don't have that very much trash, the city does have a program where you can share your trash can with a friend. And so that pretty dramatically cuts your costs.
Thank you. Councilmember Bavaro.
Thank you, Mayor. First of all, I'm pleased to hear that we're going to be going to revisit the service agreements. It's been since 2007, I believe, since they've been reviewed and updated. And when they did that, they put a clause in there for haulers, if they were to withdraw, that it would take them, they'd have to give the city 16-month notice. And I'm looking forward that the discussions in the service, among those who are going to be working on the service agreement, that they focus on Western urban CPI as our base point, as we do with other projects in the city. I will be supporting the residential decrease. I will be voting no on the commercial recommendation. 10.1% is excessive in this market, and hard for me to justify to the business community when urban is at 3.32, that they're getting a 7% increase. And I will be voting for the industrial. It's right within, in my opinion, right within the Western urban CPI recommendation. It's just a few percentages, but I think it's close enough, if I can use that word. So, thank you, Mayor.
You're welcome. Any other comments from council members? All right, this will be
So, Mayor, just a quick comment. I believe that the resolution, and correct me if I'm wrong, but the resolution includes the commercial and industrial are part of the same resolution.
Oh, it is?
Yes, that's the first resolution up to be voted on. But I believe that is for commercial and industrial.
All right, so the first one is a resolution approving the annual rate adjustment to the maximum rate schedule for city solid waste collection services provided by the solid waste haulers for a decrease of $1.08 per month for residential services, an increase of $6.61 per cubic yard for commercial services, and an increase of $24.87 per pull for industrial services to become effective September 1st, 2024, and rescinding resolution number 2023-312 for the August 1st, 2023 annual rate adjustment. Do I have a motion?
Clarification. Are we just on residential, or are we including residential, commercial?
It's the same.
Okay.
Go ahead and speak into the microphone if you don't mind, City Manager Lopez, so that everyone hears the response.
I was just clarifying where the motion was stated in the agenda report.
Okay. I misunderstood. Thank you.
And I made a motion.
All right, have a motion by Councilmember Williams.
Second.
Second by Councilmember Wright. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Councilmember Bavaro.
Aye.
Councilmember Williams.
Aye.
Councilmember Wright.
Aye.
Councilmember Scutier-Brayton.
Aye.
Vice Mayor Alvarez.
Aye.
Councilmember Ricky.
Aye.
And Mayor Zwallen.
Aye. Carries unanimously. Resolution approving a fuel rate adjustment to the maximum rate schedule for city solid waste collection services provided by the haulers for a reduction of 11 cents per month for residential services and a reduction of 13 cents per cubic yard for commercial services to become effective September 1st, 2024. Do I have a
Move
motion?
to approve.
Motion by Vice Mayor Alvarez.
Second.
Second by Councilmember Wright. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Councilmember Bavaro.
Aye.
Councilmember Williams.
Aye.
Councilmember Wright.
Aye.
Councilmember Scutier-Brayton.
Aye.
Vice Mayor Alvarez. Councilmember Ricky.
Aye.
And Mayor Zwallen.
Aye. Carries unanimously. A resolution approving the update to the schedule of cash security deposits and fees for self-haul residents and businesses in accordance with Assembly Bill 939 and rescinding resolution number 2022-471.
Motion to approve.
Motion by
Second.
Councilmember Williams and a second by Councilmember Wright. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Councilmember Bavaro.
Aye.
Councilmember Williams.
Aye.
Councilmember Wright.
Aye.
Councilmember Scutier-Brayton.
Aye.
Vice Mayor Alvarez.
Aye.
Councilmember Ricky.
Aye.
And Mayor Zwallen.
Aye. Carries unanimously. A resolution approving the final report and recommendations of HF&H Consultants LLC, Walnut Creek, California, regarding City of Modesto 2023 Solid Waste Financial Review and Rate Analysis, which provides staff next steps for rate methodology development and haulers franchise agreement review. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Moved by Councilmember Bavaro.
Second.
Second by Councilmember Wright. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Councilmember Bavaro.
Aye.
Councilmember Williams.
Aye.
Councilmember Wright.
Aye.
Councilmember Scutier-Brayton.
Aye.
Vice Mayor Alvarez.
Aye.
Councilmember Ricky.
Aye.
And Mayor Zwallen.
Aye. Carries unanimously. Thank you very much. Thank you for your presentations and for being here this evening. Next on the agenda is new business, item 22. Consider reviewing, providing comment, and accepting the proposed fiscal year 24-25 internal audit work plan. And I'd like to welcome our city auditor, Colleen Rosias.
All right, good evening, Mayor and Council. I'm Colleen Rosias, your city auditor. Per the city charter, the city auditor develops a work plan that's presented to the audit committee and council for review and comment. The audit committee approved this work plan last month, and so we're here tonight to talk through that work and get your input. The work of the city auditor, as we've discussed several times before, focuses on reducing risk, improving controls, improving operational efficiency, and aligning city operations with best practice. All of our work is conducted under industry standards that require independence and objectivity, and we consider those qualities for each team member on each engagement. Our annual work plans are informed by organization-wide risk and internal controls assessments. The city had a risk assessment conducted in 2022, and we conducted an internal controls assessment citywide in 2024. We also receive input from council, from staff, and we look at a lot of data that helps to inform our work plan. I want to note on this process, this is a full diagram of what goes into an internal audit program, what we identify as opportunities for improvement, and then how we track and report on that. We are still working to establish the internal audit function after a hiatus, and we plan to have a full validation process in place by the end of this year, which I'll cover in just a moment. So you'll see this slide each year when we give our annual update on internal audit. Since the function was reestablished last fall, we've undertaken 6 projects. 3 are complete, fraud, waste, and abuse training, a procurement performance audit, and that citywide internal controls review. And then 3 are in progress, and they'll be presented at the next audit committee meeting. And those are a fleet internal controls review, a solid waste and forestry efficiency study, and a property management review. So on this slide, for this fiscal year, we've planned 6 projects as well as our ongoing program management. We've included 2 internal controls projects, payroll and accounts receivable, 3 performance projects, so permitting efficiency, a capital program, and a utilities fiscal review. And then of particular interest to council, we are establishing a process that tracks all findings and recommendations. That's not just internal audit, that includes external audit and grand jury findings. And we'll centrally track implementation of those recommendations. We won't just track whether staff says they've been implemented, but we'll validate those recommendations and whether they've actually been implemented. And that's an important tool for transparency and accountability for the public, and it directly supports the council's strategic goal of a high-performing organization. And I wanted to just note a couple of things about how we put our program together here. We balance between controls and performance, and we also balance between internal services, or what we like to call the engine of city government, as well as those that are public facing. And so you'll see we try to fit in a little bit of a jigsaw puzzle, again, based on risk and priorities, and that's how we came up with this program today. So I'm happy to answer any questions that you have.
All right, thank you very much for that report. Are there any questions from council members regarding item 22? Councilmember Scooty Brayton.
Thank you, Mayor, and thanks for the report. I thought I heard you say that one of the audits you would be doing is the solid waste efficiency study?
Yeah, we actually are just about complete with that one. It'll be delivered at the next audit committee meeting.
What items will that address that weren't addressed from our earlier presentation?
So that audit was of the haulers and their practices, and ours is looking at the city management of the solid waste function as well as forestry. So it's actually an update of a prior audit that was done when they were in the same division. So what this does is it looks at how do we manage the contracts, how are we staffed, how do we respond to customer inquiries, what workloads look like, things like that at the city level.
Thank you.
All right, Councilmember Williams.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Colleen, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. First of all, we hadn't had a city auditor for a while, and you are doing your best to give us all the information and the data, and it's much appreciated. So thank you.
All right, any other questions regarding item 22? Seeing none, I will open this up to the public. Are there any members of the public that would like to speak regarding item 22? I will close public comments, council comments. All right, do I have a motion accepting the David Wright. I'm sorry.
Thank you, Mayor. That's okay. It's a long night. Colleen, I just want to commend you. Every time I come up to City Hall, it seems like you're up there. So I know one of the issues when we looked at a city auditor is making sure we have somebody that was here working all the time. And it seems like, as far as I'm concerned, you're here more than not. And I appreciate you and your staff, what you're doing. Thank you.
All right. Any other council members?
So sorry.
Sure, no problem.
For the interruption. Your work is very interesting to us and to the public of what you are evaluating. Do you list on our public website your work, what you are reviewing, what studies you are conducting?
Yeah, we actually are working with the city manager's office to get that up on the website. So we'll have our annual work plan published if it's accepted today. And then we can start putting our reports up there as well. Once we get that validation process, that's going to be the most important part and of interest to you.
Beautiful. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Do I have a motion accepting the fiscal year 24-25 internal audit work plan?
Motion to approve.
Motion by Councilmember Wright.
Second.
Second by Councilmember Scooty Brayton. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Councilmember Bavaro?
Aye.
Councilmember Williams?
Aye.
Councilmember Wright?
Aye.
Councilmember Gutierrez?
Aye.
Vice Mayor Alvarez?
Aye.
Councilmember Ricky?
Aye.
And Mayor Zwollen.
Aye, carries unanimously. Thank you very much. Item 23, consider approving an agreement for concrete services with United Pavement Maintenance, Houston, California, and Westside Landscape and Concrete, Newman, California, for a total amount not to exceed $17,250,000 for 5 years. We will have a staff report. Welcome.
Good evening, Mayor, City Council. Deanna Christensen, Director of Finance. So just to give some background in regards to the need for this agreement. So our Public Works Department deals with a lot of repairs that are needed throughout the Modesto community to address damaged sidewalks, curbs, and gutters, predominantly generated from our city trees or various utilities. Based on the report that's presented today, there was about 5,000 outstanding work orders for the pending repairs and replacements that were needed. And based on the current update that we got, there's about 4,400 that are currently still outstanding based on new information. In addition, in regards to just getting an overview of what's managed on an annual basis, just within city staff, they handle about 100 of these work orders annually, and with adding an outside contractor to assist with this support, it adds about an additional 200 work orders. So as part of the Measure H spending plan, specifically started in 23-24, there was an item that was captured to incorporate about $1.8 million in funding to address this immediate need with addressing this with the sidewalk repairs here in Modesto. So to ensure, again, we had an immediate contract available, we solicited informal bids and entered into a one-year agreement that was approved by council on October of 2023 with United Pavement for that annual amount not to exceed the $2.35 million. Knowing again that there was going to be a need for more longer-term services, the intention was to always ensure that we move forward with doing a formal solicitation while, again, we had this active one-year agreement in place. So the purchasing division within the finance department did solicit formal solicitations to, again, enter into that longer-term agreement. And the goal with this outside contractor agreement is we would be able to, again, continue to address the sidewalk repair backlog and hopefully address about 200 work orders in addition annually. So the other thing, again, I want to capture as part of the Measure 8 spending plan for the current budget year for 24-25, again, there was still additional allotment of funding for an additional $1.8 million in sidewalk repairs. In addition, there was several deferred maintenance items that were captured for the Parks Department, and based on some of those deferred maintenance projects, there was also a need for concrete services. So again, the need for this services captures both of those areas as well as our utility department that would need it for maintenance services. So purchasing solicited an invitation for bids in April, and in May we closed the bids and we did receive 6 bids. 2 of them were deemed non-responsive because they had incomplete information to be able to vet these vendors. So based on the bids that were received, staff is recommending to move forward with the 2 lowest responsible and responsive bids, which includes United Pavement as the primary, and then Westside Landscaping and Concrete as the secondary. So just to, again, give an overview of the funding, because again, this is a large agreement with an annual amount of $3.45 million. So again, as I mentioned, we currently have allotted funding for the 24-25 budget year based on the sidewalk repairs managed by Public Works and the Parks deferred maintenance. And as I mentioned earlier, there's also a need to ensure that we have ongoing concrete services for the maintenance projects that are handled by our utility departments. And again, I want to emphasize, yes, this is a 5-year agreement, but this is again ensuring that we still have the allotted funding based on every annual budget year. So again, we would not utilize the services if the future funding is not authorized for future years. So with that said, I'm more than happy to answer any questions, and I also have public works staff here if there's any questions about the sidewalk repair needs.
All right, thank you very much for your report. Any questions for staff, from council members regarding this item? Seeing none, I'll ask members of the public to come forward regarding item 23, if anyone would like to speak. Close public comments. Any comments from council members? All right, I have a resolution approving the award of bid and agreements for concrete services to United Pavement Maintenance, Houston, California, and Westside Landscape and Concrete, Newman, California, for a 2-year agreement with 3 one-year extension options for an annual estimated amount of $3,450,000 and a total amount not to exceed $17,250,000 over 5 years, and authorizing the Director of Finance to adjust agreement totals between vendors based on contractors' availability and departments' needs, ensuring the combined total does not change, and authorizing the city manager or his designee to execute the agreements. Do I have a motion?
Motion to approve.
Motion by Councilmember Wright. I will second it. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Councilmember Bavaro.
Aye.
Councilmember Williams.
Aye.
Councilmember Wright.
Aye.
Councilmembers Gutierrez Brazen. Vice Mayor Alvarez.
Aye.
Councilmember Ricky.
Aye.
And Mayor Zwellen.
Aye. Motion carries unanimously. All right, are there any matters too late for the agenda? Seeing none, I'm calling this meeting of the City Council to be adjourned.